So if we talk about the young generation, a question for both of you, should we start teaching in school maybe with a topic like ecological awareness? To start teaching that in school?
I mean, of course you could do that, but I think it would be better to include that aspect in all other subjects, so that we show that everything is connected.
I am not a bigot. I am a good global citizen and believe all the socially acceptable things that the good grown-ups at the big banks tell the TV screens to tell me to believe.
Welcome to the planet, my dears. Wipe your feet. Come on in. No more need for coats in your mother's den.
What do you see as the biggest challenges in conservation?
The growing human population. Because if where we are, there's nothing else.
And do you have views about what should be done about that?
Can't you guess?
Then the doors burst open. The king and queen walk through. There's our precious daughter. If they did not know what love meant, who would?
I am so happy that Prince Philip, friend of Jimmy Savile and father of philanthropist and champion of science Jeffrey Epstein's close friend Prince Andrew, and enlightened scientists like Bill Nye will come up with solutions to the #climate crisis. I believe when the TV tells me that science says the Earth is dying because of climate change, which is why I became a vegan activist, but I wish we knew how to stop it so poor Prince Philip and Greta can have their futures back.
Growing population is a problem, but notice that the rate that the population is growing, human population is growing, is slowing down. It's apparently raising the standard of living of women and girls, people like you. As women and girls get better educated, they have fewer kids, and the kids they do have more resources, so they're better taken care of and they are more successful.
And I think that was the biggest aha to Bill and me when we got into this work, is we asked ourselves, of course, the same hard-nosed question you'd ask, which is, if you get into this work and you start to save these children, will women just keep overpopulating the world? And thank goodness the converse is absolutely true, because they don't do that.
In this year's annual letter, Melinda and I take the toughest questions we get asked and give our answers. One that's come up for a long time is, as we make the world healthier, is the population going to get so big that feeding everybody and maintaining the environment is going to be impossible? We find that in every country of the world, this is repeated. The population growth goes down as we improve health. That the faster we improve health, the faster family size goes down. And so we can feel great about saving those lives.
Having a child means that your net carbon output per year in tons is 59. From one child is 59. Going on a vegan diet removes 0.8. So if you have a child, that's literally making up for like 70 vegans.
That's
you know,
exactly
if you go car free, if I live in Manhattan and I don't drive, I am the equivalent of 3 vegans. If I wash my clothes with cold water, if I hang them to dry, and I recycle everything, that's the equivalent of 1 vegan diet.
I am so glad my educated wife knew better than to have children. It gives me more time to become a better version of myself. If we did have kids, she wouldn't have this great job and I couldn't have gotten the vasectomy from Dr. Gregor that her corporate health insurance paid for. My wife's boyfriend suggested I take a break from playing my Nintendo Switch and doing hardcore vegan activism in YouTube comments a few times a week to meditate or exercise, but even my spiritual leader, Sadhguru, is concerned about the #climate crisis. Maybe he has a viable solution to this real and not made up crisis that is going to make everything bad happen if we don't do what the good grown-ups in government, banks, and the media tell us to do.
Unless you reduce the human footprint on the planet, there is no solution for anything. Then they ask me a brilliant question, how do you reduce the human footprint? I said, you have to reduce the number of feet. That's the only way. So, Right now, it doesn't matter what others think. All of you who are here and those of you who are hanging out with me, we can take it upon ourselves that we will not push the human population. You can have a dog.
He promoted this on television, and he went around all the agricultural shows, and he had I mean, it was a one-man thing, and it had a tremendous effect. It reduced it from 3% to 1%. But one of the things he said to the farmers, he said, look, you don't need all these children, it's ridiculous. You've got to feed them all, clothe them all, educate them all, and look after their health. So have a few, and then if you want to go on entertaining yourself, have a vasectomy. Oh, yes. Well, how do I do that? Well, I'll organize it for you. We'll have buses running into Bangkok on the King's birthday, very auspicious day. And you will go into, and he took over a whole lot of school halls and all that sort of thing. And he showed me a photograph of all these beds and everything, and people went in, and I said, but how did they take it? Well, he said they didn't like being seen to have the operation. Oh, I said, really, how do you do that? I had visions of, putting up. Oh, he said, it's quite simple, I blindfolded them.
Hey, what's that gadget?
Global
Television?
citizens breaking news. I am not a bigot. I am a good global citizen who takes the recommended daily dosage of vitamin TV to keep me in a state of anxiety, agitation, confusion and learned helplessness. I am not a science denier. I trust the experts. I do not deny science. The good grown-up experts from science on the TV interrupt this totally real and not made-up #climate crisis to bring you information from a more important and totally real death threat from a global pandemic virus. We must all listen to the experts from science and obey the TV and participate in this totally necessary and justified, mandatory panic.
Spoiler alert, you're a scientist.
What I will say of this virus, I think we're in the middle of a massive experiment worldwide. And that
where are the guinea pigs?
Maybe the experiment is, will people listen to scientists? In this case, referring to medical professionals?
Medical professionals.
In this particular case?
Say Anthony Fauci over at Allergy and Infectious Disease.
For example, and are you washing your hands? And are you taking these precautions? These are warnings offered by scientists. And
for our own good.
For our own good. And I'd be interesting if we all paid attention to what scientists say, obeying the recommendations of scientists. It's an interesting experiment we're in the middle of.
Report by Johns Hopkins researchers and said that as many as 6,000 children a day could die over a 6-month period from preventable causes because of healthcare system disruptions caused by the coronavirus. Our next guest, Greta Thunberg, recently gave $100,000 she had received for her climate change activism to UNICEF to help protect kids from the pandemic. She's also helping raise even more money for UNICEF. She recently revealed she believes she may have had coronavirus after returning home from working in Europe. She said her symptoms were very mild, and her father, who had traveled with her, also got sick. We spoke to Greta Thunberg earlier this afternoon.
During this crisis, during any crisis, it is always the most vulnerable people who are hit the hardest, and that is children.
Because there's so much focus on coronavirus, there's a lot of kids around the world who may die of things that are very treatable, but because medical systems are overwhelmed, it's going to impact children in ways that a lot of people don't really anticipate.
Coronavirus! I have to say as well, I mean, Anderson and I have traveled around the world and seen the amazing work UNICEF has done in various places. I mean, it really is a terrific organization. Children's Emergency Fund.
I am so scared. If the extra non-essential people don't all obey science and stop working, wear masks, obey social distancing guidelines from science, and stay home until the good grown-ups tell us it's safe again, everything bad will happen always and all the people will die. The models clearly show that this is necessary and we have no choice but to listen to the experts from science. I am not selfish. I am a good global citizen who does not hate children and grandma. I will listen to what this brave, grassroots 16-year-old human shield tells me to do. I am not a bigot. The science is settled. We must accept a new normal. My wife's boyfriend is an essential worker on the front lines. He is a university graduate and a department manager at Walmart and understands the science and the models. He assures me that this is the right thing for us non-essential people to do.
Things I've seen you talk about online too is just how important it is to listen to experts and listen to science. And this is a time when, I was not a very good science student when I was in school, but this is a time it seems that, the global scientific community is so critically important, and we're really seeing just how important it is to follow science.
Yes, exactly. And I hope that we can see now the scientific community are stepping up, and they are speaking up more than they're done before, because obviously this is a crisis that require the scientific community to speak up. And I hope that people really, it feels like science is getting, the role of science is changing now. It's becoming more, people are starting to realize that we are actually depending on science and that we need to listen to scientists and experts. And I really hope that that stays, and that also is for other crises such as the climate crisis and the environmental crisis, that we actually understand that we have to listen to the scientists.
If the world was vegan, there would be no COVID-19. Up until 10,000 years ago, there were no epidemic diseases. What changed? We domesticated animals.
How's it going? I hope you're being safe out there and in good health. And certainly, I hope you're having enough toilet paper at home. Corona emerged due to the consumption of meat. What can I do in the future to prevent this? Leave the meat off your plate. Don't buy any animal products, and don't consume anything that an animal died for, or has been raped for, or has been tortured for. You know what I'm saying? So in order to avoid a pandemic in the future, you might want to look into your current diet and see what consequences to have an animal on your plate might have on a global scale. And you're seeing it right now. This is a small taste.
American philosopher John Rawls devised a thought experiment called the veil of ignorance. He suggested that when trying to determine a moral course of action on an issue that affects multiple people, we should make that decision from a veil of ignorance in regarding which person we will be. For instance, when designing a social policy that affects two different classes of people, one can imagine that once this policy has been designed, one will be placed somewhere in this society with an equal chance of ending up in either of the two classes. The idea is that placing oneself in a veil of ignorance when designing societies or social policies for that matter should result in a more fair and just society where everyone's interests are considered equally. The British government has now put restrictions in place to slow the spread of this virus. People in the UK are only allowed to leave their homes for specific reasons. This includes shopping for necessities, medical care, and travelling to and from work if it's absolutely necessary. Shops selling non-essential goods have been closed, as well as gyms, libraries, places of worship, and gatherings of more than 2 people have been banned. It's extremely important that these measures are enforced and that we practice social distancing, because potentially every one person can set in motion a chain of events that results in thousands of people being infected. Despite this, it seems that many people in the UK aren't taking this seriously, with photos emerging of packed tube stations and crowded parks. The mortality rates can be expected to increase over time if no countermeasures are put in place to flatten the curve, with hospitals becoming overrun with cases. Sure, if you ignore these guidelines, you may not ever see the victims of your actions, but I can't see how that's morally relevant. If I buy cow's cheese, directly affecting the supply and demand and causing more cows to be tortured and killed, I'll never see my victim, but I'm still morally responsible for their suffering and death. This is especially the case when we consider that the government have now told us extensively the risks of leaving home and not practicing good hygiene. We have now been told countless times that more people will die if we do not take this seriously. One argument is that going outside is going to give you a large amount of pleasure, and that you'll be missing out on something if you don't go outside. Perhaps as a social event you really want to go ahead, or you're just bored of social distancing. This is essentially the same argument that non-vegans use when trying to justify killing animals. If we don't think that we can justify killing non-humans on the basis of pleasure, then surely we can't justify killing humans on the basis of pleasure. I mean, come on, what next? Perhaps you also think that because lions don't self-isolate, humans shouldn't either. I think we all know that the behaviour of lions isn't an excuse for humans killing animals or humans. You may also think that Hitler self-isolated and he was a vegetarian. And while it's true that Hitler did self-isolate before his death, what Hitler did and didn't do is irrelevant to what we should do. To be fair though, if God wanted us to self-isolate, why would he give us legs? Another argument people may use is that the quicker we all get infected, the quicker we reach herd immunity. This of course is true if a virus can only infect you once, which we are not certain of when it comes to coronavirus.
Wow. That is some of the most powerful science I've ever heard. I feel so helpless and afraid, but comforted that the science has a plan to fight this terrible real death threat from this pandemic. The essential workers at the hospitals need our help. We must stay home and implement a global lockdown until the good grown-up experts like philanthropist Jeffrey Epstein's close friend Bill Gates come up with a happy, safe, healthy injectable science medicine to make us immune and healthy. Luckily, this won't affect my vegan activism, which is done anonymously in social media comments. I just wish all the non-essential people would listen to us empowered science-affirming activists and stay home and eat plant-based kibble so we can win the battle against the invisible enemy. Toxic masculinity and science denial seem to be at the root of this problem. It seems like both the hashtag climate crisis and this pandemic can be remedied with the same medicine. A global totalitarian technocratic social control grid of government-enforced mandatory poverty, and a new normal that redefines old, outdated concepts like freedom, healthy diet, family, and masculinity.
What do these 4 countries have in common? It's 2 things: Taiwan, New Zealand, Germany, Norway. All 4 of them reacted decisively to the coronavirus crisis. All 4 of them kept infection rates and death rates low, and all 4 of them have female leaders. This coronavirus crisis has shown clearly that we need competent, empathetic leadership, and that means more women in positions of power, and less of the macho stupidity and sociopathic behavior that we get from Bolsonaro in Brazil, Boris Johnson in the UK, or Trump here in the United States.
These toxic masculinity exuding non-essential extra people who refuse to wear their healthy muscles, stay home and accept mandatory unemployment are infringing on my rights. These science denier irresponsible non-essential people are the same bigots who wouldn't listen to the good grown-up philanthropists who tried to help them sterilize themselves and give up their non-essential rights to travel, eat meat, have jobs, own land, and reproduce in order to save our poor sick mommy Earth from all the toxic CO2 exhalations that the experts say the nasty extra people are off-gassing.
The act of killing the animal wasn't the masculine trait back then. It was the act of providing for your homes, right, was the masculine trait back in the day. Gender roles change, right, but this is back in the day, right? The masculine act was to provide and to look after and to defend. But we've conflated that with the masculine thing being aggressive, but also killing animals. And so you translate that feeling to a 2019 context, and you have people thinking, actually, to be manly means to eat meat, but actually to be manly doesn't mean to eat meat. It means to look after, right?
My favorite vegan activist can help re-educate these ignorant science denial lockdown folks. They just need some inspirational speeches from positive male role models to teach them to accept the new normal. Earthling Ed can help them understand why masculinity is not about eating meat, or having unnecessary things like children, jobs, guns, testosterone, real animal foods, and rights. If only more men would be like Earthling Ed, we would not have viruses because people would not eat animals, or toxic masculinity because men would be comfortable with their lack of masculinity and redefinition of it.
Getting women to find you attractive, and it's really grotesque when you watch these adverts and you simplify what's happening in these adverts and what's being reinforced to people, but it really, really works. Like, advertising is so powerful. So now you have this idea of that, and then as a vegan, I get accused of being a soy boy, right? And now I am a soy boy because I love soy. Like, that's fine. I drink soy milk, I eat tofu. But the idea is being a soy boy, you're feminizing yourself, right? Because there's phytoestrogens in soy products, which there is.
This brave, stunning activist has me literally shaking with self-empowered, redefined masculinity and an unstoppable drive to stay home and stop this virus and the hashtag climate crisis by continuing my hero's journey of vegan activism in YouTube comments and on my anonymous Instagram profile. Real masculinity is not about having or providing for a family and children, producing and eating real animal foods, or having unnecessary testosterone and muscle and rights. Real masculinity is about using female emotional manipulation techniques to make people behave like you want them to. Thank you, Earthling Ed. I stand with you and you're not toxically masculine man bun, and proudly declare
I am a soy boy because I love soy. Like, that's fine. I drink soy milk, I eat tofu. But the idea is being a soy boy, you're feminizing yourself, right? Because there's phytoestrogens in soy products, which there is. Like, you know, this idea that we have to reinforce these tropes of what it means to be a man. And so almost eating meat's a stamp of that dominance and authority, and is a reminder of kind of like more archaic and transgressive masculine traits and roles, which is interesting.
I am a soy boy because I love soy. I love soy milk. I love tofu. What's up, guys? How's everybody doing? Look at all these soy-loving... We're taking it back, guys. We're taking it back. Being a soy boy, there's nothing to be ashamed of, you guys. There's nothing to be ashamed of. The only thing that we should be ashamed of... Look, I forgot to wear my mask. The only thing we should be ashamed of is not wearing a mask when we're inside our homes all alone. That's the only thing we should be ashamed of, right? You shouldn't be ashamed of being soy boys. But if you forget to wear your muzzle, and you go in public, you should be ashamed. You should be ashamed. How dare you? Because I love soy. That whole edit, the cornerstone of that edit is that one moment. It's just like the only reason I made that edit, I spent a whole freaking day making that edit. The only reason I made that was I had to get that one moment in there. Isn't it beautiful? That's such a beautiful moment. So beautiful. Because I love soy. All right, what's up, guys? We got a bunch of super chats already. You guys are already starting that super chat cascade. Thank you guys for the support. Really appreciate that. We got a different crowd tonight. Usually I'm doing these streams like 6-8 hours earlier than I am right now. Usually I'm doing these at like 3 o'clock in the afternoon my time. Today I started at 7:30. Del Bridge, we got Del Bridge up in the chat. Kids are going to sleep. Ryder's last breakdown. Good night, Ryder. No answer. All right, Del sends $5. Thanks, Del. Del, you've been able to make it to quite a few of these lately, right? Or is it just on Instagram that I'm seeing you? I know I've seen your name recently, but thank you for the $5. Says, I want to give lacto-vegetarianism a try. I know getting enough iron is an issue. Do you think it's possible to be healthy on that diet? Why would you want to be a lacto-vegetarian? Why? Don't do it. Don't do it, dude. Del sends another $2 super chat just now. And he says, Sadhguru is a eugenicist. He should feel guilty. Sadhguru also says to eat a lacto-vegetarian diet. Oh, excuse me. Illegal sneeze. Illegal sneeze. Apologies. Tell your local contact tracers about that sneeze. Tell your local vegan activists about that sneeze. All right, the Art of Truth and Love sends a nice, generous $20 super chat. Thank you so much. Says, love your work. Keep spreading truth. Thank you, the Art of Truth and Love. The Art of Truth and Love sent another one. Look at that, 2 more. Art of Truth and Love sends another 20. Says, Jesus Christ is the way and the truth. I don't like this beast system. Thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate that. Agree with you there. The Art of Truth and Love says they want to ban meat. It's unsustainable for Agenda 21. They want to feed us bugs and genetically modified foods. Support your local farmers. Also do research. Also research Deborah Tavares. She has good stuff on all this. Thank you. Yeah, look up Deborah Tavares. Let me just copy that name. Is that the lady that... Is that the kind of funny looking lady? The Agenda 21 lady from Northern California? All right. Planetary Farms says $14.99. Thank you, Planetary Farms. Says the Primal Edge Health Discord is full of information. Thank you both for creating a safe space for people to chat about important topics. That's right. All right, so you guys want to become a member? Check out, there's a link down below. You can become a member if you love soy. No, there's not anybody in there who loves soy. Really appreciate that, Planetary Farms, Delbridge, Art of Truth and Love. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Let's get started. So, we've got everybody's favorite guru, Sadhguru, talking about the social distancing, talking about how we must reduce the carbon footprint. How do we reduce the carbon footprint? Well, we've got to reduce the number of feet. If we only cut off all the humans' feet, we will have less carbon that we are footprinting everywhere. Sadhguru also say, if the insects die, the planet will be destroyed. If you and I die, the planet will flourish. Sadhguru, soy demon Sadhguru. Let's hear what he has to say. I actually haven't even seen this clip yet. Let's hear what he has to say about social distancing and what we're told needs to be the new normal, right? What is it that's going to save us from any crisis? We all know it's always giving up more rights. It's always giving more power to governments. It's always giving more power to supranational organizations and supragovernmental organizations like the UN. It's always... right? It's always we have to make sacrifices. You plebs, you got to make the sacrifices. You got to give up those freedoms, in order to get security and safety from these crises. Let's see what Sadhguru has to say. Sadhguru, he starts conversations. He acts very humble. When they flatter him, he feels his ego swell. He does this. Oh, he smiles into his hands, his praying hands. Sadhguru says that the virus will take out all the nasty human people. There are too many people on the planet. He tells all the Indians while he is normalizing starvation for all the plebs of the Indians, he tells they should sterilize themselves. He says, you will flourish if you will die. He tells all those plebs, you must listen to government. We must all do social distancing except Sadhguru, with his harem of Western bitches, who he bend over regularly to help them to be enlightened. Sadhguru tell all those people, you must listen to good grown-ups like Bill Gates and the World Economic Forum. Remember, Sadhguru, this dude actually goes to Davos. This guy goes to the World Economic Forum and talks about the population crisis, right? Spreads the same old Rockefeller Foundation rhetoric, right? Rockefeller Population Council rhetoric, the same old Paul Ehrlich rhetoric. Let's hear what he has to say.
First of all, virus doesn't want to kill you, I want you to understand. It's you who die.
Virus doesn't want to kill you. Sadhguru want to help you to die because too many of you.
First of all, virus doesn't want to kill you, I want you to understand. It's you who die. Because the virus, for the virus, you are the habitat. You are their home, they like to live here. And of course, they would like to
move to other homes, expand their territory. But they don't want you to die, because if you die, one body is gone. So they have no intention of killing. It is just that if your body doesn't have the necessary antibodies to fight, if you don't have the immune system to stand up to them, then unfortunately you die. So because…
Like if you are an Indian person and you are poor, like most of the population of India who have been locked down, totally locked down, then you will probably be immune compromised because you are not getting enough animal food and you are living off of keyboard rations and you have taken many injections of delicious healthy medicines from Bill Melinda Gates Foundations, which give 500,000 children paralyzation in India, and then you will maybe die. All right, I'm gonna pull something up here. We've seen this a few times. This is what's going on in the country that this guy is from. All right, let's remember. This is what is happening in India. Sadhguru is sitting here. Oh, this one's horrible. I'm not going to show. This one's terrible. I don't want to show this one. This one's really sad. I can't really bear to watch that one. It's a woman holding her dead child, because all the infrastructure is shut down, right? In these third world countries where they've already got medical crises, where they've already got one of the shortest lifespans on the planet in India, right? The most plant-based continent, the most plant-based country in the world, shortest lifespan, worst diabetes rates. This is what's going on in Sadhguru's land. For those of you who are listening later on in the podcast format, we've got hordes of Indians running through the streets, right? Just charging through the streets. Thousands of people wearing shirts for masks, and the caption is, this is from Jayant Bhandari, who's a journalist in India. It says, Hunger Games Day 15, groceries were asked to reduce their hours. Then vegetables were to be supplied only by Indian government, which came for a day or two and then disappeared. They had killed the supply chain by stopping road traffic. Hundreds of millions are starving. This is India right now. This is the bread lines of India. But Sadhguru say, this all must happen because we have to reduce the human population. Here's day 60. Hunger Games India Day 60. So far, the police have been beating people ruthlessly across the country. Hundreds of millions have been starving and virtually in prison in desperate conditions. Now they're fighting back. It was the police who taught the rules of the game. Remember, the police in India, they're not going around with guns like in the U.S. They're not going around like in the U.K. What do they have, like tasers or something in the U.K.? Do they have anything, or they just use flashlights? In India, they just whack you with sticks. So here's the people in India just battling it out in the streets with sticks and stones. All right, so pretty terrible. All right, but let's go back to Sadhguru. Hear what he has to say. If the insects die, the planet will flourish. You know, if the insects die, the planet will be destroyed. If you and me disappear, planet will flourish. And everybody claps in the audience. That was another one of the edits we've done over here on the channel. Let's listen to Sadhguru again. Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Guru.
Because of that, well, the fatality is what is concerning us right now. If it is just a flu, we wouldn't care. But the fatality which has happened across the world, touching nearly 9,000 people, I think, right now. People are expecting it could go into millions across the world. Well, human societies, if they behave truly responsibly, keeping individual distance, social distance, but we are having a party in our room or in our home, this is not it. Individual distance must be there. The important thing is you maintain physical distance from people, especially those people who are over 60 years of age, that includes me.
Oh, poor Sadhguru. Isn't this funny? So this guy who we see in the clip in the beginning, in the introduction, openly talking about the need to depopulate. We need to reduce the human population. So many times this guy has said in so many different ways that we need to reduce human population. He goes to the World Economic Forum and spreads his spiritual message of depopulation. I mean, this is right in line with the Club of Rome's document from 1992, their book, The First Global Revolution, where they talk about the need to decrease human population in response to the environmental crisis, they said. They said this is the best way to get control of people using crises and a common enemy, and the common enemy of mankind must be humanity itself through an environmental crisis. This is what the Club of Rome said. This isn't like, some conspiracy candy, conspiracy lore, like some kooky YouTube channel that, this is real. This is documented public books. These are white papers that are written by the very people who are implementing these policies, who are writing global policies, who are influencing the UN, or at the World Business Council for Sustainable Development. Companies like Bayer Monsanto, Cargill, Tyson Foods, Bunge, everything, BP, Shell, Michelin, IKEA. The World Business Council for Sustainable Development. It's all this like double speak, right? Oh, sustainable development. And they tell you sustainable means good. But what does sustainable development mean? This means a controlled economy, a centrally planned global economy, not based on the financial markets of the past, but based on the financialization of nature, based on carbon credits and on social credits. This guy goes and speaks at the World Economic Forum all the time talking about depopulation, yet he just wants to save all the Indians. So he's going to advocate for social distancing. We must maintain social distancing. Why is it social distancing? Why don't they say physical distancing? Because this is social engineering. This isn't about health. You think this is about health? If this was about health, would they be locking these old people away? Locking the most immune compromised and vulnerable away to die alone? Absolutely not. It's not about health. This is about social engineering. It's about controlling your behavior.
When did I have a privilege like this? So, there are many things we can do. One thing is to strengthen our system, strengthen our sadhana, strengthen our spiritual process. So let's make use of this time and come out of this as better human beings.
Listen to this useless, this speech might as well have been given by Madonna. This speech could have very well have been given by Greta Thunberg. This speech could have been given by any of these bullshit celebs. Notice how there's no real power, there's not anything real riding on his voice. Right? There's no real passion coming out of him. It's just an empty vessel. Just a puppet saying the same things that all these NGOs have been saying for decades. Right? Sadhguru, this dude, he's basically like I don't even know who to compare him to. He's like the Bono of India, right? Bono's not even big anymore, but Madonna. He's like the Bill Gates of India. He's like Bill Gates' little bridge into India, right? Because this guy promotes all of the policies of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundations.
It's very important. And many, many simple practices we've always been telling you. We told you like this, but you went like this. Huh? Hello? All the people who are watching me in United States, those of you who many times ask me, Sadhguru, where is my hug? I looked in my pockets, it was not there.
Oh, you're cute little Indian. Oh, I do not have a hug in my pockets. What is this? It's just empty psychobabble, empty fake spiritual psychobabble. This is what Eastern mysticism has to offer. You must go inside. You must view yourself from the outside and realize that you are nothing if you only silence your mind and slow the process of thoughts. You will become complacent and empty vessel for cultural programs to flow through you.
This is good. Not just because of the virus. This is very good. This is very good.
Very good
because
virus.
Unnecessary physical contact is not good for a spiritual seeker at all.
Yes. Social distancing is the best thing for you spiritually. The only thing that is better for you spiritually than social distancing is for you to send your women to Sadhguru and give him your money.
Bondage, physical bondage, because it builds a certain bondage, physical bondage, which makes unnecessarily small things difficult. Little things that you could easily cross. A threshold becomes a wall in your experience.
Yes. Let's all thank Sadhguru. Good job, Sadhguru. Good global citizen, Sadhguru. You are a good global citizen. Isha Foundation founder Sadhguru has a special message for investors. All you investors out there, all you Western investors, putting your Western dollars in Sadhguru's many offshore bank accounts. This is what Sadhguru says. Where'd the quote go? That's not even a quote. Here's me quoting from this article from zbiz.com. zbiz.com. What is this website? It's like an Indian business website. Maybe, I'm not sure if this is translated, auto-translated from Google or what. Commonly referred to as Sadhguru, Jagi Vasudev, said that the human body can be a carrier of the coronavirus infection, the same as a mosquito, mice, or other creatures. So Sadhguru said, your human body, it carries a virus just like a mosquito or mice or other creatures. But Sadhguru also said, if the mosquitoes die, the planet will be destroyed. But if the human being die, the planet will flourish. Oh, Sadhguru. You're just mosquitoes, you're just mice. That's what Sadhguru's got to say. Close these tabs on the way out. Now remember, this is the same stuff that we've been seeing out of these foundations, the same stuff we've seen out of, you see in books like The Club of Rome, The First Global Revolution. This is from 1992. From 1992. We're on page, 70? On page 75, the infamous page 75 of this. Oh, you can't even read it. It's kind of washed out. On page 75, the common enemy of humanity is man. In searching for a common enemy against who we can unite. It should probably be read in Bill Gates' voice, because it's the same stuff that you hear from Bill Gates. 1992, the same stuff you've heard out of the Rockefeller Foundation. Same rhetoric. Searching for a common enemy against who we can unite. We came up with the idea of pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine, and the like. That would fit the bill. In their totality of their interactions, these phenomena do constitute a common threat which must be confronted by everyone together. But in designating these dangers as the enemies, we fall into the trap which we have already warned readers about, namely mistaking symptoms for causes. All these dangers are caused by human intervention in natural processes, and it is only through changed attitudes and behavior that they can be overcome. The real enemy then is humanity itself. Humanity itself. Humanity itself is the enemy. Right now, but this was the climate crisis. This has nothing to do with any, sort of new crises, right? These are old crises. This is from the old crises. But it's the same rhetoric that we see. So we got Paul Ehrlich here. Paul Ehrlich wrote, where's that book? Paul Ehrlich wrote, I had it somewhere over here. What is my eco-science book? All right, this book, bear with me here, bigots. Hold your bigot horses. Paul Ehrlich wrote this book. Oops. Can you even see it? There we go. I gotta hold it back. Ecoscience. Pretty thick book. Ecoscience. Where it starts out. Ecoscience, the section on population. I mean, there's so much going on in ecoscience. Quality of life in a spaceman economy. Could people's desires for material comforts and a high quality life be met in a spaceman economy? There are good reasons to believe the answer is yes. So he's talking about future economic models that could help reduce human population. I don't know why I marked that page, but there's so many great pages on this. Population policies. There it is. So the chapter on population policies starts out, there's my favorite quote from this book, with a quote from Mao Zedong. Right? Mao Zedong, the champion of greenness, the champion of green and of human depopulation. Right? Mao Zedong, of all things, people are the most precious. And so it starts off right off the bat, reduce the rate of growth of the population, although not necessarily to zero, is the first potential goal. The second potential goal would be stabilize the size of the population, that is, achieve a zero rate of growth. The third, right, the one that he's the most giddy about, the third possibility, these are the only three possibilities he gives. The third is achieve a negative rate of growth in order to reduce the size of the population. So Paul Ehrlich wrote this with John P. Holdren. John P. Holdren was actually President Obama's White House science czar. He's an expert. He's a good global citizen and an expert. That whole chapter is about methods for reducing population, one of those methods being economic recession. During economic depressions, during economic stress, people have less babies. He talks about ways to reduce it using diet, using mandatory injections, using implantable birth control devices that can be switched on and off by governments. I didn't even know I was going to talk about that, but we talked about it on a stream before. I'm not going to pull up the link, but everybody's favorite philanthropist, Bill Gates, has funded an implantable birth control device, which can be switched on and off via radio frequencies from an external source. And so these policy papers that you see now, and policy papers that we saw 70 years ago, they're all talking about the same thing. All this stuff being funded by Kissinger, Rockefellers, the Gates, Ford Foundation, Wellcome Trust, the World Resources Institute, all saying the same thing. And Paul Ehrlich was the Chicken Little of the 70s. He was Al Gore of the 1970s. He would go on Johnny Carson, talk about the population is so bad, and check it out. Here he is talking about the current crisis. What major issues are being ignored that are leading to these surprises? Well, Paul Ehrlich says, and I quote, "First of all, one of the most ignored factors, certainly the most ignored factor in the existential threats to our civilization is the size of our population and its growth. From the footprint analysis and so on, we're already something like 50% over what could be sustained in the long run in terms of human population." So in terms of human population, he says we've already got 50% too many people. And this is the guy who wrote about reducing the population in this book, which was a textbook for university students. It used to be hard to find. I don't know how much a copy of this costs now. You can find copies online. This one was printed in, I think, 1978, but it originally was printed, I believe, in 72. It's still saying the same thing. Most of our infectious diseases all come from other animals. The larger the human population, the greater the chance of a disease from other animals getting into our population. Again, this hasn't been proven that this disease came from an animal. This hasn't been proven at all. In fact, many government officials are saying this might not be true. This is probably not the case. Right? Now, I'm not saying I agree with them. I'm not taking a side on where this came from at all. But it's funny how that's always the line, right? It comes from animals. We've got to stop eating animals. We've got to stay away from the animals, right? Because human beings, they say you're just an animal, but then they say, oh, you're dangerous for all the animals. You're going to infect them with your dirty humanness. You're going to infect them with your dirty carbon exhalations. It's madness. It doesn't really make sense. There's no consistency with it. He says the size of the population is important because the more people you have, the more you push people into the habitats of other animals. You guys are encroaching on all the ants and crickets' territories, like Sadhguru says. How might population size be a factor? Can you give an example? He says, quote, sure, the more people you have, the more you tend to have large numbers of malnourished people. For example, current estimates are there's something like 2 billion human beings who have micronutrient malnourishment, which makes them immune compromised, which makes them then receptors, good receivers for animal diseases. Does that sound like anybody we know? Does that sound like anybody we know? We've got decadent Westerners who are making it a virtuous, beautiful thing to malnourish themselves on vegan diets that are deficient in zinc, vitamin A, copper, iodine, heme iron, vitamin K2, vitamin D, cholesterol. So many nutrients that we require. Westerners are being told to become deficient in them, to save the planet, and to be nice to the sad animals. All right, so he goes on and on. Human population is too high. We need to reduce the population. China's got to get rid of their animal markets. They got to stop eating their animal foods. Anyways, Paul Ehrlich, we're not going to read the whole article, but you guys can check out this interview with Paul Ehrlich concerning COVID, climate change, and cherished colleagues, because, of course, it's the same medicine that we need. We got to take the same medicine to fix COVID as we did to fix the climate crisis. And the medicine is sterility. The medicine is mass-produce, pharmaceutically enhanced, genetically modified crops given to you by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Bill Gates being one of the biggest investors and shareholders in Monsanto. Right? It's pharmaceutical injections. These are what are going to save the planet and save us, right? And supposedly make you healthy. While at the same time, these people say that there's too many of you. Well, they want to save you, but there's too many of you. All right, I got a whole bunch of, look at all you people in the chat. What's up, guys? So many awesome bigots in the chat tonight. Honest F says, Tristan sounds more like Bill Gates than Bill Gates. Thank you very much. Yeah, we got to get Jay on. Where's Jay? Jay's got to jump into the chat. Where my boy Jay Dyer at? We did we'll do another boiler room, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday. Jay will be in there. Did a great boiler room, which I shared via Twitter the other day. Jay was in on that one. That was a good one. Well, let's come over here and read some of these super chats. Kashif Raja. What's up, man? Sends $10. I'm sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of your name. Sends $10. Says, thank you, Tristan, for helping me with my weight loss keto journey. You started it for me a few years back. Dude, that's awesome. Hey, man, I didn't do it, though. You did all the work. Right? I just kind of showed you a roadmap. But you did the work. You put in the footwork. You made the habit changes, and you improved your health. You improved your life. Right, I'm glad I could be of use to you. I'm glad I could be of service. Thank you for the support, dude. We definitely can use that support. Thank you, everybody, for supporting. Kashif, really appreciate that. If anybody else wants to get in touch, if you guys do want to get in touch for coaching, one of the best ways, one of the most affordable ways is to become a member of our private members forum. We're going to do another coaching call, I think, on probably Friday this week. Looking at my schedule mentally, I think Friday is going to be the day for the next coaching call in our inner circle, our private members forum. So anybody wants to join that, hit us up. Still do private coaching, of course, but that's the most affordable way You know, us non-essentials who are told to stay home all the time. It's the most affordable way for us. So hit us up in the membership site. Hope to see you guys there. That is a way that we can support you on your journey. You can get coaching from us, and you can support us in our work as well. A lot of people always ask about getting in touch with Jessica. That's the best way. She doesn't come on YouTube much. She does some Instagram every once in a while. But YouTube's brutal. She's too nice for YouTube. Del Bridge says in $5, says, I want to try lacto-vegetarianism because I love dairy. I can save more money having raw dairy products with some sprouted grains and supplements. All right, cool, man. Thanks for clarifying that. But why don't you just eat like a little bit of meat and then copious amounts of dairy each day? That's essentially my diet. My diet is loads of meat and dairy. All right, we've got cows, so dairy's free. I mean, it costs money to maintain them. The actual cows cost money. Once they start multiplying, you don't have to put in as much. So that's my diet, man. It's not lacto-vegetarian. It's lacto-carnitarian. All right, so I would suggest, sure, man, go for it. But don't spend your money on sprouted grains and supplements. Get some good meat. A little bit of beef each day. You don't need that much. And you need less if you have a lot of dairy. But then you include some plant foods that you can digest as well. But please don't go full vegetarian. Keep some meat in there. You're going to need that meat. The Art of Truth and Love, what's up? Thank you so much. Another generous super chat. Keeping this stream afloat. I think you started. No, Dell started this whole cascade. This whole super chat cascade. Thank you guys. I'm from South Korea. Carbs are what we love to consume, such as noodles and rice. What must I do to purge the sugar? Oh, you don't have to purge it. There's nothing wrong inherently with carbohydrate. But if you make the basis of your diet primarily good quality animal foods, if you focus on the good quality animal foods, you're not going to have as much room for the other stuff you don't need. If you're trying to lose body fat, if body fat loss is your goal, if body fat loss is your goal, then removing those carbs can be very useful. Right? If you're overweight, you want to lose body fat. You don't need those carbs. But you're going to need something. You can't just starve yourself. So you're going to want to focus on good quality animal foods. Focus on fatty meat. Good quality animal fat and protein. Raw, unpasteurized dairy. And fill up on the good stuff. And you're not going to have room for the other bullshit. And that's the simplest advice I could give right now without really looking at your context. Appreciate the super chats. And I hope that helps. Aaron Valen got 10 pounds. That's pounds. Is that pounds? Pounds or euros? Aaron Valen says, are there any long-term complications to eating beef and rice long-term? I have a high metabolism, lose too much weight on full carnivore. I feel great so far. Thanks for all you do, Tristan. Why don't you include some stuff like raw milk, raw honey, some good fruit that you can digest, right? Some good locally produced seasonal fruits, local raw honey, local raw dairy. That's going to be the best. Right? Don't be buying bananas from Ecuador. You can't have our bananas anymore. You can't have our Ecuadorian bananas anymore. No more bananas for you. Eat the local fruits, local honey. Rice is fine, but it's like the micronutrient content of rice is really low. It probably, I don't think you're going to get, you don't run into like deficiencies from consuming white rice. It's like it's going to suck nutrients out of you, like a lot of high phytate foods. But I would say, why not go for honey, raw milk, cheese, some local fruit? Go for that instead. But nothing wrong with the white rice. If that's your only carb source, I would just mix it up more. Get some stuff that's got good micronutrient content and other stuff in it. Not that you absolutely need it. You're having trouble maintaining weight and you're losing too much weight, add some carbs in. Dairy is a great way of adding significant calories and carbohydrates in. Or just significant calories without carbohydrates if you eat cheese, which everybody loves cheese. Some of us too much. All right. Palmer Elric, not to be confused with Paul Ehrlich, sends $10, says, always bringing the heat. The good grown-ups just want to sterilize you, make your women infertile, and make you eat bugs. How dare you say the elite are meanies? Dude, I'm not. I am saying that we should listen to the science. Okay? I stand with science. All right? I stand with science. I'm a good global citizen. Thank you for the super chat. All right, back over here. So what else do we have going on here? We've got a new normal. We've got a new normal, they say. All right, the old normal wasn't normal at all. But they're saying this new normal is so necessary. Here's what is this, USA Today or just today.com? Look at this propaganda here. Separated by plexiglass, experts discuss how restaurants will change. Some restaurants have proposed performing customer temperature checks and only seating small parties. Some restaurants have proposed this, they say. What restaurants have proposed this? Please tell me what restaurants have proposed this. I doubt any restaurants have proposed this. So it shows a picture of two guys wearing their dehumanization muzzles with a piece of plexiglass in between them. A piece of plexiglass in between them at their tiny little table in a diner. They're the only ones that you could see seated. There's numbers in chalk on the wall. There's a number 4 on the wall in front of their table with their plexiglass in the middle of it. And the plexiglass is just about as high as their heads. So if they were to just look up a little bit, they could hawk a big fat loogie right over the other side of that if they wanted to. This glass is doing nothing. This plastic in between them is doing nothing to protect anybody. Neither are these stupid masks. One of them's just wearing like a sanding mask, a 3M sanding mask. The other's wearing like one of these really thin cotton masks. These masks are doing nothing. They're immune compromising you through decreasing your oxygen levels. But they're not being protected. So this is what they're saying restaurants should do. Right? And by the way, Ecuador has released their guidelines for restaurants reopening, and it's exactly what today is telling the U.S. that, oh, this is what you should do. This is what maybe some experts say you should do. And in a few weeks, it's going to be, this is what you must do in a lot of places in the world. Giorgio Viscioni, owner of Gigaprint, tests plexiglass separators produced by his company with Italian restaurant owner Valerio Calderone in Rome, Italy. Will restaurants be adopting this setup in the future? Carrie Breen wrote this article. Will people be forced to wear masks at all times? Will customers have to get their temperatures checked before entering any eatery? Will friends and partners be forced to sit behind plexiglass dividers? They're already doing this. I talked to Jay the other day on the Boiler Room, and he says him and Jamie went to a restaurant and they had to take their temperature to go to the restaurant. And the waiters were all wearing masks. And these are the guidelines that the Ecuadorian government tells the Ecuadorians they have to do. This is what the Ecuadorians are being told they have to do to open their restaurants as well. Restaurants in particular face hurdles, unique hurdles, when it comes to how they may serve customers in the immediate future and beyond. Now diners are wondering what their next meal out might look like. See, they tell it to you guys like, oh, maybe this is what we should do. But in third world countries, they say, bitch, this is what you're going to do. They say, this is what you plebs have to do. They say, this is what you must do. Last week, a set of photos from Rome, Italy started making the internet rounds. Some were alarmed by the scene. Diners are separated by a giant plexiglass pane, which ideally not only helps block contaminated particles, but would certainly make it more difficult for someone to sneak a fry from a companion's plate. It's like so childish. So freaking childish. Check it out. Stephanie Robson, PhD. Ooh. Sounds like an expert to me. Teaches hotel and restaurant design at Cornell University's School of Hotel Administration. Said that some of the changes proposed are a non-starter for restaurants. When I saw that picture in Rome, I just laughed. Like, you gotta be kidding me. That's silly. It's just silly. Thank you, lady. I agree with this expert. Robson, who specializes in the psychology of restaurant design, suggested that booths with higher backs might be a compromise for both restaurants and diners. People will feel secure because they've got a separation between them and the other party. And it's a very familiar seating style. You see this, even the person who says, no, this is too much. Oh, this is too much. We should put people in cages, though, so they feel safe from the other plebs on the other side of the restaurant. We don't want people to feel like they might get in contact with somebody physically, you know? Oh, that'd just be terrible. People feel secure because they got separation between them and the other party. Come on. Come on. All right, this is always with this social distancing now. Social distance forever. Come on. All right, composure under pressure. Thank you. Sends $40. Sends that generous $40 super chat with a comment that says, "Thank you for all your efforts." Thank you. Thank you for all your efforts. Thank you guys for sharing this. Guys, hit the thumbs up. Thanks for supporting the work we do here. All right, see, we can support this, or we can stop this rather by not supporting restaurants that do this shit. By not supporting establishments that make you wear a mask when you come inside, that make you put hand sanitizer on your hands, that hand sanitizer that actually destroys the microbiome of your hands and makes it more likely that you're going to absorb phytoestrogens and phytochemicals from the environment. This is true. This is a fact. These hand sanitizers wreck your biome on your body and make you absorb more phytoestrogens from all the plastics everywhere. All the plastics that they're putting everywhere to tell you they're going to keep you safe. It's so dumb. All right, so check this one out. This is in the cover image there. Socially distanced dining. Solutions from around the world. From mannequins at the tables to pool noodles on your hat. Restaurants are finding ingenious ways to keep customers safe. So we got these mannequins at a little Virginia restaurant here. A restaurant filled with fake plastic people. But this is about health, right? Filling your restaurants with fake plastic dead dolls that you can eat with. This is about health. The World Economic Forum talking about how this is going to reshape cities. I don't even have time to read all this. COVID-19 computer games teaches children importance of social distancing. World Economic Forum. Thank you, WEF. The World Economic Forum says that we should play video games to teach us the social distance. Okay. A new computer game which has been released to teach children about the importance of social distancing aims to save lives with 7 billion as the high score, representing the global population. How lovely. Research suggests games that encourage positive social behavior can influence people's actions in the real world. All right. Games like Lockdown, games like Listen to the Experts, games like pretending that you're doing something by clapping for the heroes while you're locked in your house. Play games. I want to play games. They teach you to be children. Look at this is so dumb. Here's the game. In the game, keeping a safe social distance is key. In the game, you just walk around and stay away from people. Toilet rolls. Wise man, who is also a member of Britain's inner magic circle of top magicians, said about 15,000 people had played the game since its launch. Although conceived for children, adults are also playing and posting pictures on Twitter. It has gone viral. It feels like it has chimed with people. Playing games. You got the WHO. WHO's Play a Part Together campaign uses games to promote social distancing. This is what your tax money goes to. What was it, like $450 million of U.S. tax money goes to this organization. I got to pay. I don't even live in the U.S. I haven't been in the U.S. in 10 years. 9 years actually, 2011 was the last time I was in the US. I gotta pay a huge portion of everything we make. And I still owe. I still got taxes to pay from last year. And the government still expects me to pay it, even though it's printing how many trillions of dollars to just give it out. I still got to pay those taxes. And it goes to organizations like this to make games, to promote games, to tell you to social distance. World Economic Forum. Video games are transforming how we communicate with each other, and they could fix a range of global issues too. Video games are going to fix all the issues. All right, so while you're inside, guys, while you're inside playing your video games, you might want to ask your wife's boyfriend if you can borrow some of his sunscreen. Because CNN says, yes, you still need to wear sunscreen indoors. Here's why. Make sure to ask your wife's boyfriend if you can borrow some of his sunblock while he's at work as an essential worker on the front lines at Walmart. If you're fortunate enough to work from home during the coronavirus pandemic, then you've probably got your morning beauty routine on lock by now. Get it? On lock? You got it on lockdown? Double entendre. You wash your face, hydrate your skin, and apply your no-fail makeup products. If you're choosing to wear makeup products at all, before you hop on your morning video chat with your coworkers. Like, it's okay to choose not to wear makeup. It's okay, says CNN. But you might be forgetting an essential part of your beauty routine, sunscreen. UVA rays penetrate through glass. So if your room has a window, it's important to wear sunscreen even when inside, says New York-based dermatologist. I can't even read this. It's so ridiculous. I feel like everything we see is just, it's like the Onion has taken over every media outlet. This is how stupid, this is how much respect they have for us. They're telling you to rub toxic phytoestrogens and aluminum, toxic sunblock, to block the sun, to block your vitamin D production while you're sitting inside, radiating yourself with your Wi-Fi devices right next to your womb. Look at this chick. She's got her 5G cell phone. She's got her laptop perched right there on those reproductive biddies. But you got to be afraid of the sun. They tell you the sun's going to give you cancer. They tell you going outside, being around people. Everything that makes your immune system strong, they tell you is terrible, right? Social contact, families, good quality animal foods. They tell you it's terrible. I don't know. I can't do this anymore. I can't do CNN's article. So there you go. We've got Allure.com basically runs the same PSA. Here's why you still need to wear sunscreen indoors, according to dermatologists. Think you can skimp on SPF while working from home due to the coronavirus crisis? Nope, definitely not. Here, derms explain why sunscreen is still completely necessary while quarantined inside by Kaylee Fasanella. And look at this beautiful black woman that they're telling to wear sunscreen. A picture of a black lady, right? Like, what black woman wears sunscreen? What black woman wears sunscreen inside? Come on. This is how much respect they have for us. World Economic Forum, I don't know why I had this one. I guess I just like the image there. They've got somebody at a beauty spa, but she's got her face mask on with her eyes covered. Right? She's blinded and muzzled. Good global citizens, I've got good news for you. I have good news for all you bigots in the chat. Our buddy here is going to teach you a really good and healthy morning routine. This is the Good Global Citizen morning skin routine.
Good evening, let me show you guys my super fast night routine. First up is the cleansing balm to melt away my sunscreen and build up oil on my skin. Then I rinse my face. While my skin is still wet, I use a cleansing foam to wash everything away. Then I rinse my face. I dry my face because I'll be chemical exfoliating and my skin needs to be dried. A quick 10 minutes is all I need. Then I rinse my face. Next is a cleansing stick for my nose to melt my blackheads. Then I rinse my nose. I finally towel dry to continue to my toner and wipe on my face. Pat 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 to absorb. Afterwards, I layer the essence directly onto my skin. Pat 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 to absorb. My vitamin C serum oxidized a little bit, so I'm adding a little bit of vitamin C powder to up the potency, mix it up a bit, and then apply to my face. A quick spritz of my mask boosting mist and then sheet. Hydration is key, people. Masks are a fun way to treat yourself. A quick 20 minutes is all I need. Don't forget to pat 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 to absorb. Gotta do my red LED light therapy. 3 minutes in each problematic area. Eye cream to help with my crow's feet and eye bags. And lastly, the moisturizer to seal it all in. And after that, you're done. Merry skincare.
And don't forget to pat 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 to absorb.
Let me show you guys my super fast night routine.
Okay, I can't do it again. We're not doing that again. So there you go. There's your socially acceptable. The problem is he's not wearing a mask. And no one can see your blemishes when you're wearing your muzzle all day. No one can even see those blemishes. And so we've got a new way of living, a new way of dining. I don't even know if we might just skip over this. A new way of dining, but I mean, what are the vegan activists going to do? What are the vegan activists going to do? All the restaurants are closed. Social distancing measures are being enacted in these restaurants. Where'd it go? What are the vegan activists going to do? They can't bust into the restaurants like Joey Carbstrong loves to do. We watched this video on the last stream, but here's Joey Carbstrong, good global citizen, vegan activist Joey Carbstrong, Joey Armstrong. And with these new restaurant rules, how is he going to activist?
Murdered animals hanging from the window, but when you show the slaughterhouse footage, people don't like it. And they're okay seeing animals hanging from a window.
Murdered animals hanging from a window. All right.
A lot of people don't even notice the screens because their heads are in their phone, which is why we have to put all this on social media to get all those people that don't look up. You know what I mean? Everyone's head's in their phone. That's why I exist inside of their phone. When you've only got 15 to 30 seconds with someone, it's good just to say, like, when you pay for animal products, you're causing animal abuse, that makes you an animal abuser.
It's good to just accuse someone of being an animal abuser, a rapist, a murderer, right? Here we go. Busting into the restaurant. They can't do this anymore, though, right? How are they going to do this in a restaurant full of mannequins? I see Joey Carbstrong busting into a restaurant full of mannequins. You're a bunch of rapists. There's rape. Milk is murder. There's one patron in the restaurant surrounded by freaking mannequins.
So that's something got any vegan food. See where meat comes from lately? It's Australian pig farming. That's where meat comes from. Whole cow holes. They're the victims of meat, dairy and eggs. That's a gas chamber. It's a gas chamber that slaughters pigs in Australia here.
He sounds so giddy when he talks. It's a gas chamber, mate. What do you think about that? It's cool, huh, mate? This dude's so sick. He's so sick in the head. These people are sitting down eating their food, and he's showing them cows getting bolted in the head. Right? Think about how humane a cow getting bolted in the head is compared to a cow getting eaten from his asshole up by a lion is. Or a cow getting a wound. Right? We had a cow that escaped. No respect for fences. She freaked out. We were trying to bring her to another pasture to hang out with some other cows for a while to save the pasture here for the animals that are giving milk. Right? So we're bringing her like a mile over to the west. And when she got there, she freaked out and she bolted and she jumped over a couple fences. She broke through a barbed wire fence and she cut the skin flap on her chest. So she's like a gear mix. So they have this like huge, beautiful skin flap on their chest, and she gouged that thing. And here, when an animal gets a wound, there's these things that they're called bicheras. They're gusanos. They're little worms. So this cow, she escaped, and she ended up on our neighbor's property down below. And we decided to keep her over there because there's some bulls already there. She's fine there. Just let her chill out and then bring her up here. I'm probably going to end up selling this cow and getting a different one because she's a little bit of a pain in the ass, but she's beautiful and she'll probably give good milk one day. So we haven't really decided yet. We want to trade her, but then we'll have to pay more for a cow that's already pregnant. It's a little bit more mature. We don't really have the money for that right now. So we're in between. We don't know what we're going to do with her. But anyways, she got this wound in her chest. And the neighbor calls me up and is like, dude, the cow's got gusanos. It's got these worms in a wound. So I had to go down there and catch her, which is a pain in the ass. Really, really difficult to do. Had to catch her and treat her with this spray stuff, this violet-colored spray. Actually, you see it on animals a lot around here because as soon as there's an open wound here, these flies start laying these little worms in these wounds. And these worms eat away and they fester in these wounds and they'll eventually kill the animal. These worms will take over and eat that animal's whole body. They'll just rot it. It's really gross. So you can spray this stuff on it and it kills it and then it heals up. Right? But how much worse, how much more long and slow and painful and grueling is that death from an animal getting wounded than being eaten by parasites than it is a bolt to the head, bled out real quick, and slaughtered. But these people, they're so disconnected from production of food. These people produce nothing. Joey Carbstrong does nothing to produce anything. He just leeches off of his audience. He's a professional vacationer. He's a Patreon e-beggar who lives on permanent vacation, has never worked a day, got out of prison, and became a professional vegan activist. These people have no idea where their food really comes from, but they obsess over all this suffering while they're making themselves suffer from denying themselves the foods that they require. So he's starving himself, causing himself to suffer, and just looking at and consuming all this suffering and repeating these mantras all day. It's really weird.
These are slaughterhouses, sentient animals being murdered for steak. You don't think of that when you go and buy your meat, do you? Someone suffered and died and got killed. That's what happens. Do you think it's funny? It's funny to torture animals for a steak? Yeah. Who's being more disturbed, this pig or you? Yeah. I'm not taking photos, dude. I'm not taking photos. Hey? He doesn't have a flash on that, mate. Alright? Stop torturing animals for your steak. Yeah? You're gonna knock me out because of animals being tortured?
No, he wants to knock you out because you're an obnoxious, insufferable douchebag who's always pushing his will on other people. You're obnoxious and freaking insufferable, Joey Carbstrong. And you're ruining somebody's lunch and you're pointing a camera at him, trying to get your shots so you can put it up on YouTube and then suck money out of your dumbass Patreons. That's why he wants to come smack you. Because you're fucking obnoxious.
I'm not taking photos of you, dude.
And this should be upsetting my kids.
This should be upsetting. It's horrible. I wish people didn't pay for horrific animal abuse when they bought steak. You pay for meat, you're paying for animal abuse. No. Better choice than stabbing animals to death, isn't it?
So how is Joey Carbstrong going to do this? How is he going to do his activism? How is he going to do his activism? We'll come back to Joey Carbstrong in a minute. You know, we've got to make sure these animal rights activists are coping well during this time of crisis. Let's check in on our friends over here. Those annoying vegans. Those annoying vegans who came on for a debate not too long ago. Those annoying vegans. Let's see what they've got to do in their little coffin apartment. Let's see how their activism is going.
Where's your book, Betty? Where'd Which one? These one? These one. Oh, you want to read tricks? Is this your favorite book? This is a new favorite book, huh?
Which one's Petunia?
That's you. You're brown. That's right. Which book, baby? Which one? These one? These one. Oh, you want to read tricks? Is this your favorite book? This is a new favorite book, huh?
Which one's Petunia?
That's you. You're brown. That's right. Which book, Betty? Which one?
Dude, I'm just amazed. I'm dumbfounded with this. So, yeah, well, here's the caption. And if you're listening later on, they've got a chicken, and it's sitting on this little bed. They made a bed for this chicken, and they're always making videos like this. They read it books, and they let it pick out which book. They let it pick out which book by pecking on the book. Because chickens just love bedtime stories when they eat their plant-based kibble in somebody's apartment. So these same people are always talking about, oh, these diseases are because people have animals and they're unnatural environments, they'll say. They'll do these appeals to nature and say, these animals are unnaturally close together in these crowded environments. These animals should never be bred into existence to do this. And then they get a chicken that should have been dead 5 years ago. This raggedy ass chicken, this raggedy ass abomination of a chicken that's so old and gross looking. There should have been chicken foot soup 6 years ago, and it's and they're treating it like a child. And they treat it like they anthropomorphize it, and they treat it like a child. I know this is right after they got done with its Spanish lesson, right? They were teaching it proper conjugations, vocabulary, expanding her vocabulary in Spanish. This little hen. Those annoying vegans say, in a previous video, you watched Betty play the grape guessing game. Betty seems to understand the concept of choice, as do many animals. Not only does she clearly make food choices, like when she chooses a favorite food over a less desirable food, but she also knows that when one hand is empty, the other will surely have a grape in it. There's more. In this video, we took this idea a step further. For several weeks, we'd read Betty a single book, but then we got her a new one, which she began to favor at bedtime. We usually limit our knowledge to our own experiences, but just because most people haven't spent time with chickens, for example, doesn't mean they're not intelligent. Non-human animals are far more complex than we know. So Betty really loves the book, Guess How Much I Love You. That's her favorite book, is Guess How Much I Love You. She loves it, guys. So those annoying vegans, they're doing really well in quarantine, totally mentally healthy, right? Just living it up, reading books to their pet chicken. So I'm glad they're doing well. Their activism is still going strong. It's a hard time for vegan activists, guys. It's a hard time for vegan activists. All positive comments. I'm a vegan, but I've always had a slight fear of birds since Home Alone 2. I can't even read it because it's terrible English. Right? It's probably his second language. All right, Stephanos Theobaldus says, I'm vegan, but I've always had a slight fear of birds since the Home Alone 2 movie Bird Lady. Seeing Betty up close makes me want to pet her, but I would fear she would peck me. This is not satire. That's a real comment. I didn't just make that up for satire. She's so smart. More of this kind of content, please. Beautiful. OMG. so cute with vocal fry. Gotta add the vocal fry in the OMG comments. My heart beats for her, says Immortal Canary. I love this. Thank you for your thoughtful and thought-provoking posts. Much love, you guys. This is David Wonton. Lots of OMGs. Birds are smart, sentient beings that deserve life and respect, says Rue Friends. That's great. All right, so those annoying vegans, they're holding up well. You know, quarantine is really hard on all of us. Social distancing is very difficult. But, Sadhguru say, we can all do our part to stop the proliferation of the human babies. You can have a dog, or you can have a hen, or you can have a hen and you can treat it like a dog, and then eventually you can be so mentally ill that you treat it like a baby human. We got some super chats. Del Bridge, what's up, man? Again, said at $5 says, veganism used to be more pure in the past. Now veganism has been infiltrated by the CIA during the hippie movement. It's just not the same anymore. I mean, veganism has always been whacked. I'll disagree with you there. Thank you for the super chat, but I disagree. Why would the CIA need to infiltrate veganism? These people are already out of their heads. Veganism started in the 1940s. It was named veganism. Before that, it was strict vegetarianism. But there have always been sects that have said they're going to reach spiritual enlightenment through not eating animals. And they've always been degenerate. They've also been antinatalist. Right? It's always tied in with antinatalism too. But thanks for the super chat, dude. Slightly disagree, but yeah, veganism is whack. I agree with you on that. Cholo Mexicano. He says $5. The NWO gangsters of the future will eat meat, hustle chicken eggs, and drink milk. Yeah, fool, I murdered that cow and I ate it too. Watcha. Yeah, Holmes, I murdered that cow. Yo, I got some ribeyes. I got some ribeyes buried out in my secret freezer, Holmes. You want to trade me some scante for some ribeyes, ese? Thanks for the super chat, dude. Coffee Bean sends $5. Saludos, Tristan. Están locos. Joey Tart Strong. You humane hand... humane hand junk. Gracias por todo. Muchísimas gracias, Coffee Bean. I like how you spell your name. That's pretty clever. That's pretty clever. A little double entendre there. Hound Dog sends $5. Thoughts on debating vegan gains again on diet. Says, I know the first one was unproductive. I'd like to hear you guys have an actual discussion. Dude, every discussion with vegan gains is completely unfruitful. The dude is completely dishonest. I have no interest in debating anybody on health. Right? If you want to eat a vegan diet, if you want to do that, right? Like I'm not saying you, but if people want to eat vegan and they think that's healthy for them, go ahead, right? You're just going to end up leaving eventually. Unless you're so wrapped up in it ideologically and you're so, unless your whole income is all about it and you create an online profile, an avatar that you project this false personality through, and all of your reinforcement comes from that, like Richard, aka Vegan Gains, then you're probably never going to leave. Right? So he'll go down with the ship. But that guy has zero arguments for his ethical position. Right? I have no interest. If he wants to come on and talk about it again, that's fine. But as far as like debating, what'd you say? You want to debate on diet? Debate diet, like for health? Not interested in that. If he wants to come and talk about morality and ethics of veganism, which is his real position, right? He's said many times, he doesn't even care. He said he doesn't even care. He'll die. He told John Venus that, I don't care. I would die. If I knew, John Venus asked him, dude, if you were going to die and if you just ate eggs, you would not die, would you eat eggs? And Vegan Gains says, no, because I'm not selfish like you, John Venus. So thanks for the super chat, dude. I mean, Vegan Gains could come on again, but I don't think he would. I don't think he wants to. He'll just get smashed again. And it was not unproductive. You say it was unproductive. Vegan Gains, and ask yourself, got fucking destroyed. I shouldn't swear, but I'm going to get demonetized now. They got wrecked, man. They got totally destroyed. They can't back up their moral and ethical claims for anything. They can't, they're constantly, first of all, they say morality is subjective. It doesn't exist. It's made up. But then they act as if it's objective. Right? So their fundamental presuppositions about morality and about ethics are completely nonsensical, completely hypocritical. And I demonstrated in that debate how hypocritical and pathetic his whole worldview is. It's a house of cards built on a foundation of sand that gets blown over by the wind. So thank you for the super chat. If you can arrange it, if you convince him, he can come on and we can talk again. But I'm not interested in though. I'm not interested in it at all. I'm tired though. All right. But we got somebody coming on. We got Skinny Vegan Fitness coming on. He might even be in here. Let's see if he's in here. I don't see him yet. Skinny Vegan Fitness. Let me pull up. Where's he at? Skinny Vegan Fitness. He should be joining soon. Maybe any minute now. Skinny Vegan Fitness is going to jump in. But vegan activists, they need your help, guys. Joey Carbstrong, he needs your help. Where is... Joey needs your help. With all this lockdown stuff, all these quarantines, vegan activists are unable. They're unable to do their brave, stunning activism. Joey Carbstrong is not able to go out and activize the people. He's not able to storm into steakhouses and bother people while they're trying to eat their lunch. He's no longer able to go and call people at Starbucks murderers for putting cream in their coffee or ordering a chai latte. And not only is Joey...
Hello everyone, welcome.
Excuse me. Shut up, Joey. Not only is Joey suffering, but it's not even about Joey, you guys. Remember, this is all about the animals. Guys like Earthling Ed, who gets $7,000 a month just in Patreon donations. Those are $7,000 for the animals. And the animals are suffering. The crickets and the cows and the chickens, they are suffering. And COVID-19, this crisis that's causing hundreds of millions of people to starve in India, that's destroying the economy of the third world and destroying people's livelihoods, destroying small businesses, increasing suicide rates dramatically due to these crazy lockdowns. We're losing all of our rights. Let's hear what the real issues are, though. Joey knows.
To another video. I'm just walking out here in this beautiful park here. Check it out. It's amazing. Now, I want to talk...
Check it out. It's amazing. Whatever. Now. Send me monies on my Patreon.
About the t-shirt fundraiser that we were doing. A week or so back, we released a t-shirt line to raise money for the Retreat Animal Sanctuary and for Tower Hill Stables. They're doing it a little bit tough at the moment because of the coronavirus thing. You know, they can't open to the public. The retreat can't open to the public. Some people are having trouble keeping up with donations because they might have less work and less money coming in. So we decided to do a fundraiser. Now, we released a pre-sale and it's done very well so far. So thank you to everyone who's made their order already. But we're going to close the pre-sale down in a couple of days. So we're doing one last push to anyone who really wants to get behind the sanctuaries. Every single bit of the profits after we pay for the production costs and fulfillments and postage, all of that profit will be going to the sanctuaries. That money will go to feed the animals, to help with the facilities at the sanctuaries. This is all going to the animals. So consider it like a donation and you get a garment, a Joey Carbstrong garment. If you really want to get behind a good cause, this is your time. This is your chance. You'll have a little piece of Joey Carbstrong memorabilia to keep. And thank you to everyone who's already supported. So it's been amazing. We didn't.
So Joey needs you guys to buy his t-shirt so he can help the animals at the sanctuary, where they take farm animals and put them in really close quarters, just like those annoying vegans. The sanctuaries, which are basically petting zoos for vegans, petting zoos for decadent Westerner vegans who want to feel like they're saving the animals. These people go and they buy farm animals and they keep them in petting zoos. This is what a sanctuary is. All right, some of these sanctuaries are pulling in millions of dollars a year from these dumbass vegans who go and pet the animals. They produce nothing. They feed nobody. They feed these animals a shitty diet, most of them. They keep them in close quarters. Some of them only have a few animals. Right? They'll have like 2 chickens, 1 cow, a goat. These animals are miserable in these sanctuaries. It's funny. They think that they're actually doing something to help these animals, but in reality, what are they really doing? What are they really doing in these sanctuaries, right? Joaquin Phoenix famously saved, where'd that video go? Joaquin Phoenix saved a cow and brought it to this like $1 million sanctuary where they're still feeding these cows. These cows have no pasture at the sanctuary they went to, farmsanctuary.com, right, where the owners go to like Met Gala. Farm Sanctuary's 30th anniversary gala with Sean Monson and Amy Jean Davis. All right, these are petting zoos run by vegans who want to sit at home and stroke their chickens. This is what these things are. So Joey needs money for them, but you know what? I thought I would have time to hit on all this. We're going to have to hit on some of these other things later, but I think I agree. We need farm sanctuaries for these vegans. Instead of keeping these animals in these farm sanctuaries, we should have farm sanctuaries where vegan activists can go and socially distancing, they can pet mannequins of chickens and mannequins of cows, right? Gary Yourofsky can go tongue kiss mannequin cows. Joey Carbstrong can throw carrots at plastic goats. This is what we should do. This is what we should do. So I'm going to start a farm sanctuary, guys. I'm starting a sanctuary where we're actually going to produce food too. So our sanctuary will be a sanctuary for more animals, but those animals are also going to feed our community. Those animals are going to feed multiple families, and those animals are going to provide jobs for other people. We're not just going to give chickens for those annoying vegans to choke. Right? We'll actually make food. So I'm gonna get on the sanctuary scam, guys, so you guys can fund my farming addiction. How about that? Honest AF sends 10. Canadian says, make sure this money will go to your animals, Tristan. That money will be used for the animals. It will. Honest AF, thank you for the super chat. Really appreciate that. I'm always seeing you up in the chat. Longtime supporter. Glad that you're enjoying it. Glad that I could be of use to you. But guys, guess what? We got a guest coming up. I'm about to jump out of here for a second. You guys hang on, hold on. I should have had a transition clip here. I'll play a. No, actually, I'll pull up a beautiful image. You guys can see my beautiful preview image. I spent way too much time making this morning, and I've got Skinny Vegan Fitness coming on, and we're going to talk about vegan activism, a little friendly chat, friendly debate. I didn't even get into half the subjects I wanted to talk about because we had Paul Bashir was supposed to debate me on Thursday. Paul Bashir of the Cube of Truth, an anonymous voice for the voiceless. But it seems like he's going to probably back out. I guess I'll talk about that on another stream unless he decides to show up. That'll be cool. But we've got David from Skinny Vegan Fitness. He seems like he's actually pretty cool. He seems like a not insufferable vegan. I don't think he's like Joey Carbstrong. We'll see though. We'll see what he's got to say. We'll have a nice conversation, nice debate. Hold on, let me get ready in the back, and you guys hang out. Hold your horses. Hang out there in the chat, bigots. All right. Let's make sure. Oops, I don't think they can see you. There we go. No. Zoom's not coming through. OBS, come on now. All right, guys, I'm here with Skinny Vegan Fitness. I've got a little bit of a video issue. Let me make sure I can get Zoom working here. Properties. Technical difficulties here. It's 9 o'clock at night. This is past my bedtime, guys. Sorry about this. I made David here. David's your name, right?
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Cool. David had to get up early because he's. Where are you, David? If you want to go ahead and introduce yourself. They can't see you yet. I'm working on the video, but go ahead and give an introduction so we don't have too much dead time. And tell us where you're at and where you're coming from.
Can they hear me?
They can hear you, but they can't see you yet.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, I'm currently in India, and working with. I'm sure some of the people have been researching the things you're talking about. They'll know about the group Animal Save Movement. So I work with that group, and we've been setting up some new groups over here in India. I've been here for like 12 months on and off, like kind of going back and forth. And currently stuck here because we can't fly anywhere, obviously, because of the lockdown. So
yeah,
that's a short version.
You know, hey, are you able to do Skype? Because I'm not able to window capture Zoom for some reason. It's not coming through. It's not working on OBS.
Yeah.
Let me send you here. Let me transition back to the audience. You guys are. Hold on a second. Let me figure out the my boomer tech over here. All right, here we go. Now we got video. All right, man. Sorry about that. My bad. We're good now. David, very nice to meet you, man. You're coming from, you mentioned you're in India, right?
Right now, yeah, exactly.
We were actually just talking about India earlier. Are you familiar with Sadhguru?
Yeah, I saw you were talking about him. Yeah, I know about him. Yeah, absolutely. He's pretty famous over here. Famous worldwide, actually. Probably one of the most famous Indian gurus out there.
He's like Osho without Valium.
I've honestly, I've seen the only videos I've seen of him have not been good. There was one he was talking about how women shouldn't be in the kitchen when they have their period. He was saying in one of his videos, and I obviously didn't like that. And then there was another one he was talking about cows, and it's just very, very contradictory in a lot of the things he says. So I'm not a fan, yeah. But I've got lots of friends who are big fans, so we discussed this a little bit.
Nice. So how did you end up in India? You mentioned you work with an organization. What was that organization called?
It's called Animal Save Movement. They're an NGO based in Canada, and we came here on a bit of a project, really, to work with local communities, vegan animal rights communities around India, introduce them to this organization, and just give them, like, if they wanted to start a group, then we'd say, okay, here's how you do it, and that's basically what we've been doing for the last 12 months or so, and also going into slaughterhouses, dairy farms, exposing things that have been going on in these places, and creating lots of video content from these places, because it's fortunately and unfortunately, it's a lot easier to go in and see, because they're not, in the West, a lot of this is hidden. Security cameras, high walls, things like that. You can't go in these places. In India, they don't care. They are totally open, and even if they're illegal, they'll still let you in, because the police is corrupt. So there's nothing that we could do, even if we wanted to.
What's it like? I mean, India's like full lockdown still, right?
Right now, it's like a partial lockdown. So they've lifted most of it. So we can go out between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. And then after that, you're not allowed to be outside. But that's great, because before it was 7 till 2. So at least now you can actually have a day outside if you want to be outside, which is, significantly better.
Yeah. Well, how'd you get into vegan activism? How'd this all start? Like, how did you become vegan, and why did you get so passionate about it that you wanted to, get active and start exposing slaughterhouses and doing the things you're doing now?
Yeah. So I've got a bit of a different story to most. So I was born and raised vegetarian. So the only times I've eaten meat have been by accident, and I was raised that way. So my mum raised me that way because of ethics. Like she went vegetarian when she was 16, and raised me with that way. Like, I was raised taking me to like farms and things like that to show me the animals and asking me, do you want to eat them? And obviously as a kid I'd say, well, no, they're right there in front of me, they're alive. And she kind of taught me some of these core morals and principles from a young age. And then my transition, or whatever you want to call it, my vegan life started because I started to have some issues, digestive issues, and I went to the doctor. They told me it was IBS, and then I decided upon myself. I thought, okay, maybe it's something to do with lactose, right? Mm-hmm. So I just took all dairy products out of my diet and thought, let's see what happens, and it completely fixed whatever the problem was. And then it just kind of set me on a path to say, okay, right, what have I been eating and why? And I just kind of realized, well, I don't need these animal products, clearly. They're causing me problems. So I cut all the animal products out, and I felt fine. Mm-hmm. And then that I started to learn about the industry and what was going on, and it kind of matched with what I was already living that way anyway. So once I learned about all the different, specifically talking about the UK here, about how things are done and all the process and all the industry, and it just kind of, I guess, solidified my decision. I didn't get into activism for a long time though, because, as I said, my original reason for becoming vegan was a selfish reason. It wasn't anything to do with the animals. It was just like, oh, okay, I don't need to do this, so I won't do this anymore. And I had done activism when I was very young, but I had a really bad impression of it because we got a lot of abuse. I was only like 13, 12 or 13. My mum took me to a protest, and it was one of the worst things. It was horrible. It was against animal testing, and the people that were running this place were really violent. Like, they were coming out threatening us, shouting in our faces. Like, so I never wanted to do that ever again. And I had dabbled a little bit, but I found it a little bit cringy in some of the things that were being done. I just didn't fit in with these people. And then eventually, you were talking about Paul Bashir earlier, actually, Anonymous for the Voiceless. They started popping up, and one of my good friends convinced me to go and just go and see what it's about. And I really, like, that's why I'm here right now. I like having conversations with people that I disagree with. I think it's important. So that's literally what Anonymous for the Voiceless is. You stand on the street and you have conversations with people that completely disagree with you.
Yeah.
And I just loved it. I felt, oh, this is great. I can help people, I can help the animals, we can have these discussions that are really important to be having. And yeah, it just kind of matched the way I wanted to speak about these topics, the way I wanted to act on them, and without necessarily doing some of the other stuff that I wasn't so keen on at the time. And it just got me back kind of into it, I would say, like more involved in this community, let's say, in this movement.
So are you cool, man? Yeah, thanks for the breakdown. So vegetarian since a child. Your mom was vegetarian for like spiritual reasons, or for like, why was she vegetarian?
It's a good question. Yeah, she was, she still is. Like, she still is quite a, let's say, spiritual person. But it was ethics. She saw a truck full of animals when she was like 16, and you know how they are when they're moving on those big trucks, and some of them stick their heads out, and she just felt like this is really horrible. It really shocked her. She'd never seen it before, and after that she decided that she didn't want to participate in that anymore. And then she went vegan 5 years before me. So yeah.
How long have you been vegan again?
About, I keep saying 10 years, but I feel like I've said 10 years for the last like 11 it's 11 years, between 10 and 11 years.
And like no animal foods at all? Like no, you never had a few drinks, maybe had a burger or something, nothing like that?
People have tried, but no, people have tried that. Obviously, like, I'm in a non-vegan world. Most of my friends, well, back in the day, most of my friends were non-vegan because there were basically no vegans around. So they tried, but no, never.
So now where you're at right now, you're probably surrounded by a lot of vegans, right? Like, are you with other activists and living with other activists?
I'm with my girlfriend, who's obviously an activist and a vegan, and I guess once you kind of start, let's say, working with these kind of circles, then yeah, you tend to meet more and more people like you, like-minded people. And I think actually it's a positive and a negative, because I feel like that can create a bubble. And I've fallen into that trap for sure. And I've already spoken about this on my own social media as well. Like, I fell into this kind of trap where you get in a vegan bubble and you kind of forget what not necessarily, I don't think it should be the real world, but obviously we can get into that a bit more. But you forget about what the real world is saying and doing and what people are focusing on, and you kind of become, it's easy to fall into a vegan bubble where everything becomes about this kind of movement, right?
Yeah.
But I've tried my hardest to not let that happen. I've still got reconnected with some old friends and stuff like that.
Yeah. So you're not like, you haven't shunned all your old friends. What do you think about Gary Yourofsky, where he's like, my mom is a fucking psychopath and she still eats animals and I fucking hate human beings? And do you think that Gary Yourofsky is a good role model for human beings? Do you think my Gary Yourofsky impression is semi-acceptable?
I think it's pretty good impression. I think he's had some issues with his family. I think that's the big difference. I think with my friends, if my friends treated me like his family treated him, they wouldn't be my friends. He's had some serious blow-ups with them, as far as I know anyway, from some of his stuff that he said and things they've said to him, and he's had some real big fights with them. So I've not had that with my friends. My friends respect me. They respect and agree with a lot of the things I say. Even though they don't go vegan, we've had some conversations where they've said, I totally agree with you, I just don't have the willpower to do it. And I this is my life and I'm just not ready to do it, but I agree with you. As much as I hate that, I can't hate them for being honest. You know what I mean? It's not like we had a big fight. It's not a reason to never speak to them again. But if they told me to go fuck myself, and then obviously, you know, I'm not going to speak with them anymore. That's not the kind of person you want in your life, right?
It sounds to me like it's more like Gary Yourofsky telling people around him to go fuck themselves. Because when you listen to his, when you listen to his he's talking human beings are the most disgusting, filthy animals in the world. They're a bunch of disgusting booger picking rapists and disgusting animal eaters. Fucking wake up and go vegan. It sounds, I mean, if he talks like that to his audience, I can imagine like his relationship with his family. I don't know. Maybe I'm on Team Gary's family. I'm on bring Gary back to Team Humanity. I don't know about that.
I think, yeah, no, I totally get you. I think there's definitely an argument to be had about how you speak to a group of strangers in an audience versus how you speak to your closest family. I mean, I talk about this as well. Like you can't approach 100 people in an auditorium in a university the same way you would approach your mum and dad. Your mum and dad don't see you the same way those people see you. You can't use the same tactic. You can't use the same language. You can't even use the same tone of voice. If you do, you're gonna end up falling out. So yeah, there's an argument to be had for that. I don't know exactly how he spoke to them. I just know that it didn't go well. I don't know him personally. I just know it's from interviews. So yeah.
Yeah. So what kind of activism is it that you guys do? Like what kind of activism are you engaged in? You mentioned you saw the Cube of Truth and the anonymous Voice for the Voiceless, where they have videos and they're showing Earthlings or Dominion or whatever they show. They show this, what I call slaughterhouse porn. And people stand around and then Paul Bashir is allowed to talk to them. Like, do you have a way that you do activism? Do you have like a specific structure, or do you just go out and talk to people in the streets?
Yeah, so with Anonymous for the Voiceless, like that style, that kind of like with the laptops and showing some footage and talking to people, that's probably the most effective way to talk to people, because otherwise, like, I don't know if you've ever tried anything like this, man, but if you try and talk to people on the street, 9 times out of 10, they don't want to talk to you. They think you're a charity worker. They think you want money. They think you want them to do something. But if you stand out there and you have some kind of laptop and it's ominous, like no one really knows what's going on and they have to watch the laptop to figure out why you're there, it helps people to stop, basically, and then you can have a chat with them. So I think that's why it's effective, for sure, because if you stand there with a sign that says, "We're here for animal rights," no one's stopping. I promise you that no one is stopping. The same way if you stood there with the sign saying, "Save African children," no one's stopping, because people don't like to be faced with that stuff.
But like meat is murder, because I see like you had a meat is murder, or no, milk is murder picture. Like, does that get engagement? Like the milk is murder sign, they come up to you, they're like, "What's up, dude? What are you doing?"
Yeah. So exactly. Yeah. So that was like a different thing. So what I was trying to do with that was I was doing like a change my mind challenge. So that's like Steven Crowder, how he does the table, change my mind. That was inspired by him. So I just thought, okay, let's give this a go. And it's not as effective. No, definitely not. Not as many people come over, because not as many people are confident enough to challenge me. Because it takes a lot of, it gets you really nervous, doesn't it? Like, well, for you, no, because you do this, but like for somebody who's never done any kind of discussion or debate or been on camera, like they pretty much 90% of people say, no, I don't want to do that. But the ones that do get involved and usually ends up being quite a good discussion, because they have accepted that this, they know they have to challenge me. So when they do stop, it tends to be good conversation. And that's more, to be honest with you, those events are not necessarily only just to kind of change or try to inspire that one person. It's more to generate something that I can then, a video that I can then share, and then I can reach more people. Whereas the Cube of Truth, that is usually to reach as many people as possible. It's not necessarily about getting some kind of challenge video or something like that. So there's different reasons for doing different kinds of street activism, depending on what you're doing, depending on what the goal is.
So, all right, so when you had the sign, "Milk is murder," do you think that's true? Obviously, like you probably wouldn't have that sign unless you thought it was true.
Yeah.
Why is milk murder?
So, on the surface, it's overly simplistic, but that's because you can't have a sign that says, full description of what you actually want to say, because then the sign's going to be, this big, this long, and no one's going to come and read it, right? So it's oversimplified. Milk is murder. Murder not in the sense of the dictionary definition, because obviously, like I'm sure you do a lot of discussions. the dictionary definitions are not the be-all, end-all of a word. There's way more to them, and they change, right? So I'm talking murder as in, basically I'm saying death, or like murder as in like someone's life is being taken against their will. That's what I mean when I say murder. I don't specify human, non-human. For me, it's all the same. I know the dictionary definition says otherwise, but like I said, I expand on that, and I feel like it should include non-human. So milk, in the sense of the milk industry, is murder, because what they, I'm sure as you know, like the majority of the milk industries around the world, they discard of the males by sending them to the meat industry, so the males are killed. And then the females, when they reach the age or whatever, the condition where they don't produce that much milk anymore, they also go to the same place, the slaughterhouse, for leather and for meat. So a lot of people don't
what would
know
happen if they weren't sent to the slaughterhouse and killed for meat? Or
yeah, they probably stay on the farm and die of old age, yeah, or you know, whatever way that I don't 100% know. Maybe they would euthanize them when they reach that point where they were, you know, no longer able to care for themselves, or they were constantly in pain. So,
but they're gonna die anyways, right? They are gonna die.
Yeah, sure. But the point is to go back from that, right? Is that they, in my eyes, they shouldn't have ever existed in that industry in the first place. And the reason I do this sign, though, is that in this event, is that people, they don't know this. Like, they genuinely have no idea. In India, for example, everyone, well, not everyone, but a lot of people are vegetarian. So
but they love milk, and they live off of that milk. Like that's a lot of their main nutrition is from things like milk, eggs, like butter, right? Like those are ghee is super important to a lot of them, right? Like that's their main source of micronutrients and macronutrients for a lot of them. So it's like, to me, it almost seems like it would be murder to remove milk from the Indian diet, considering especially that they have some of the worst obesity rates in the world. Diabetes is crazy there. Lowest life expectancy out of any other country. Major micronutrient deficiencies, like so many issues with health. Like, what would you say to somebody who on the street, somebody said, well, look, like, why would you want to deprive these Indians of one of the most important parts of their nutrition, so important to them that they literally worship the cows, many of them, right? Like Sadhguru, like he had this cow. I don't know if you saw, he had this like bull that they used to worship, that he would like bring around with jewels on it and stuff.
Yeah. So the idea of the worship of the cow, I don't know if you've been to India, but on the surface it does seem like that's the case. Okay, on the surface it seems like that's the case. It seems like, okay, yeah, the cow is worshipped, and everyone will tell you this. Everyone will tell you this, no matter if they eat animals, if they don't eat animals, veg, non-veg, whatever, they'll all tell you the cow's worshipped. But in reality, it's in a very, very small amount of areas in India where the cow is genuinely worshipped.
Right.
The rest of the country, they're being shipped to other countries to be slaughtered. They're being shipped to other states in India where it's legal to slaughter them. So it's largely, it's a bit of a, it's not entirely true. In terms of nutrition, of course there is a large amount of the population that's in severe poverty. And the interesting thing is, though, that obviously I'm not quoting studies, but I can if you want me to try and find them. But like the majority of the poorest people have the lowest consumption of animal products, because animal products are more expensive. They tend to, the street food in India, the cheapest street food you can buy has no animal products in it at all, not even meat.
Right, because it's cheaper and mass produced, right? Like I would say it's because it's cheap and it's mass produced stuff, right? Like soy oil, corn oil, like these are all imported goods. Like they all come from China. They're heavily processed. They're dirt cheap. They're subsidized.
Yeah, the food that they're making on the streets it's homemade food. Like I'm not talking about stuff that's processed crap. I'm not talking about McDonald's or Burger King here.
Yeah, but they're using oils, right? Like what's the fat in them? What's the oil?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what oil they're using, but I know that they don't use ghee because ghee is extremely expensive here. Ghee's a privilege. To use ghee is a privilege. It's not something the poorest people use. And
the poorest people are the ones with the worst malnutrition, right?
I'm gonna. We'll assume so. Yeah, we'll assume that's the case. I mean, I've not personally worked with these individuals because I don't feel that that's an area that should be our focus, right? It's not fair to focus on the people that already have so little. And there's a misconception about India that's everybody, but it's really not. I mean, of course, there's a lot of the country that is in that position, and that's it's horrible, but it's not everybody.
Mm-hmm.
There are millions of people that are not in that position. So what I think, and what my personal theory on it is if the people who can make these changes start making these changes, then that will change the market and change the economy of the country to allow the people that currently can't make those changes to make those changes. You know, it's not for me to go to some really, really poor neighborhood and start saying what people should or shouldn't do. That's I don't know if anyone has that impression that's what we're doing here. It's absolutely not. We're working with locals, local organizations, local communities, local groups, with the circle of influence that they have, which tends to be not those places, because that's like I just said, it's not really fair to go into these places when there are people that could make these changes very easily. Yeah. It's not fair to go to places where these people probably are unable to make drastic changes without significantly, like you said, affecting their lives in really negative ways.
I mean, but it's gonna filter down though, right? It's like if you have nutritional policies that are gonna limit animal foods, that's gonna filter down to the poor, who are already very nutrient deficient, right? Already are, deficient in many micronutrients, macronutrients as well. Like, and it's funny, the most poor people eat the least amount of animal foods in all of India, but also seem to be the most affected by malnutrition, which is so rampant there.
I'd say the malnutrition is probably more from them not being able to afford any food. Like, it's not necessarily that they're not eating animal products that would cause that. It's that they cannot afford to get their calorific requirements met. The food they would be eating, it's going to be low quality food as well. You're right. It's going to be probably, like you mentioned, oils. It's probably going to be a lot of fried foods, things that are high in calories but low in cost, and it's really sad. But I wouldn't put it down to the fact that it's just that they need more animal products. I'd put it down to the fact they can't afford or have no capacity to, I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for here? They can't get the food that they need, is what I'm trying to say.
For sure.
Animal. Another question as to whether that's the cause of the malnutrition, but I would say it's probably just that they can't get food, full stop, or enough food, full stop.
If you think they could afford food, if you think you were to sit down with obviously you're not speaking for the poor Indians, right? You said you don't really even see them that often, but if you were to sit down with some of the poor Indians there, what do you think they would select? If they were to be able to self-select what foods they could eat, do you think they would rather have a burger than a Beyond Burger? Or do you think they would rather have milk than soy milk? Or what do you think they would choose?
It's a good question, and I think that there's a larger, let's say, social aspect to this, because they have the impression that burgers and milk and ghee and cheese, and especially burgers though, that this is rich people food because of the influence of the West. Whereas, in reality, we know, looking at the state of the West and the Western diet and what that's doing to people, we know that that's not the food that people should be eating for health, right? Whereas in places where people are poor, they see that as healthy food. Like, this is what the rich people eat, so it must be the best, right? So I would say, without any further education, without any further knowledge, they probably would go for burgers, probably even McDonald's, KFC, because that seems to a lot of people as good food, rich people food. That's the food.
Well, what about like when I say burgers, people are thinking of Burger King or something. When I think of burgers, I think of just a burger patty of just beef. I don't put buns on it and stuff. But what about a steak versus tofu scramble or something like that? What do you think they would self-select, the average person there?
That's interesting. It depends. The average person would never select a steak. The average person, because most people in India are not most, I keep saying most, but the majority, a good chunk of the population is not into meat. If they do eat it, it's on a very, very, rare basis. But there's a good chunk of the population that are veg, or at least they consider themselves mostly veg, whatever that means. But yeah. So I would say on the surface, because of the reasons I've said, because of a Western influence, I think potentially they may select the animal product, the meat option, but I think you get a lot of people that wouldn't. And I think also it's important that with the poorest people, the most disadvantaged people, as we've seen this time and time again also with other examples, but they tend to be the most understanding of how it feels to be discriminated against or oppressed or to be in pain or to suffer. So they tend to be the ones that connect the most with the suffering of others. So like what I found, like if you were talking to somebody who was like, let's say, has been through some kind of really traumatic period of suffering, and you tell them about what happens, and talk about a chicken in a slaughterhouse, they're much more likely to connect with that chicken than someone who's never suffered in their entire life. So I would even go as far as saying that if somebody did do outreach or went out to these places in India and discussed the animals with them, I'd go as far as saying they would be far more likely to be more empathetic, even though they had nothing themselves, than a room full of rich people. Like, I mean, I know that seems harsh on the rich people, but I would honestly make that. I would make that assumption. I would definitely put some money on that if I was betting that.
Let me tell you what I kind of hear there. I'm hearing that, and I see a lot of vegans doing this. I think it's these appeals to emotion, right? You mentioned somebody who's gone through trauma, right? Somebody who's had a traumatic experience. They're going to be more open to what I would say is just emotional manipulation, right? It's like, I mean, if we're going to tell somebody, look, here's this emotional story, here's this emotional image, don't you think that's sad? Don't you think that's bad? I mean, this is what, the televangelists do. They show the little starving child and they say, oh, look at this little starving child. If you just give me your money, this kid's not going to starve anymore and he won't be so skinny with a distended belly. It's like, these people who are sitting at home, they project their own feelings onto this person, right? So it's like to anthropomorphize a chicken to me is kind of ridiculous. And I didn't stop you earlier. You mentioned you believe that all people, people and animals are just the same, and you don't delineate between animal being killed and a person being killed. And it's like, to me, that's like at the very basis, I would say that many people would say that is something that they would disagree with, right? Like from my worldview, I don't believe that humans are just animals. I don't believe that we're just beasts. I don't believe that humans are of equal worth to as a cow or a cricket or a spider or a mosquito. It's like, I mean, is it murder for me to smash a mosquito or to pop a flea off my dog?
Yeah. So I think there's a few things to consider here. I mean, I never said that non-humans and humans were equal. Because we're not equal. Of course we're not.
Well, you said there's no difference between killing an animal and killing a person. You don't delineate between that. It's murder.
No, I said I considered the definition of the word murder in my eyes to include the murder of sentient beings, regardless of whether they're human or non-human.
So mosquitoes, fleas, ticks. What about those?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, although I don't go out of my way to kill them. If obviously, but yeah, a lot of people do. But if I have to, I will. And this is what I'm trying to say, is that I'm not holding the life of a flea in such a high regard that I wouldn't kill a flea. The same way I don't hold the life of a cow in such a high regard that I wouldn't kill a cow if I had to. And that's the big difference here, is if I have to, I will do it.
But why would you have to? Like, you don't have to survive. Like, we don't have to be alive. We could just let ourselves die. Like, this is the vegan gains argument. I mean, vegan gains said this to John Venus. John Venus was like, dude, if you had to eat eggs and you knew you were going to die. And he's like, well, hypothetically, no, I wouldn't, because I'm not selfish like you, John. He said that. It was like, it was so, and I mean, this is like, I feel like there's a big difference between where you're coming from and you. I mean, vegan gains might even say that he's not really vegan. This guy said if he had to kill a cow, he'd kill a cow. You were never really vegan, bro.
Honestly, man, there are a lot of people out there. I don't know if Gaines is included in this. I can't speak for vegan Gaines. I don't know him well at all.
You may after this. You may see a response video after.
It's gonna come for me, man. I'm just gonna make a video about me. No, I mean veganism. People call it a religion. They call it a cult. And a large part of my work is trying to stop that, as in not stop people from saying it, but stop people from acting like it, because it's not a religion. It's not a cult. It's for me, it's purely rational, man. It is a rational decision. Like I've made my decision based on logic and rationale. It wasn't based on emotion in the beginning, and it's not based on emotion now. If ever anything changed in my life that made me have to rationally consider what I'm doing and actually that I was wrong, I would consider it. I would take it on board. And I'm not ignoring the people that say what you say. I've watched a ton of videos from people who are saying similar things to you. I've watched some of your videos. I've read some articles. Like I'm touching on the other side as well as my side, man. And I'll keep doing that as long as I live. I don't ignore other opinions.
Yeah. So you're coming at it from a rational point of view. And let's get more into that in a minute. I've got some super chats here. We got the audience is very engaged. They're really interested in what you got to say. What? We got Del Bridge sends $5. Del Bridge, thanks, dude. He says, are morals individualistic or universal? That's the first part of his question. I'll ask that first. Then he packed in 3 questions in 1 comment, but it's okay because he sent several super chats earlier. So yeah, is morality subjective or universal and objective?
I think that depends on the aspect, the moral that you're talking about. I think in my head, some of them are objective and some of them are subjective, because it really depends on the one we're talking about. Like if we're talking about, I've had this discussion actually with myself. This has been a weird one for me. I've been trying to get my head around this. Let's see what you think about it. So with regards to using and killing animals, exploiting animals, like I believe that we're a dominant species. Like there's no doubt in my mind. Like we have dominion over the animals. We have dominion over this planet. We're by far the most advanced. And we have the dominion for good or for bad, right? But most of us use it for bad, unfortunately. But some use it for good, and that's where we're at now. In the sense of whether we use that power to exploit and kill other animals, I find that to be immoral. But if it's a necessity, if in some part of the world someone has to do it, like for example, we talk about the desert island. I'm sure you've entertained this at some point, but I hope you don't in this call, because it's a really common one, the desert island thing. If you were on a desert island, would you do it? Would you kill animals? And it's like, well, if I had to, I would. Does that then make that act moral or immoral? I would say the act is still immoral, but it is justified.
How do we know what is morally right and wrong?
I think those are implemented, let's say, by the larger community, I suppose, the larger society. It's something I guess we have decided on as a community. And this is the problem, is that these morals, they differ between countries, they differ between people. But some of them, I believe, should be objective. Like, for example, when we come to killing, right? Should the killing of humans ever be morally justified? Right? Sometimes it may be a necessity, for sure, but does that make it moral? And I would still say it doesn't make it moral, even if it's justified, right? Or even if it's a necessity. It's an immoral act, but it was done out of necessity. Does that then make it moral, or does it make it immoral, but you had to do it?
Well, necessity is assuming, like, there's a morality behind necessity, right? Like, do you need to do this or do you not need to do this? Like, we don't need to be alive. Like, I don't need to keep living. So if there was nothing else to eat, me and the last cow on earth, there's no necessity to eat the cow. Because there's no necessity for us to be alive, really, if you're coming from just, pure necessity. Like, what is necessity? And how do we determine what's necessary and what's moral and what's right and wrong? I think you're asking the right questions. I just think you haven't gone all the way down and really looked at the core assumptions of the worldview, because, it's like, so right and wrong, you said some things, maybe there's some morality that's subjective and some that's objective. It sounds like you're making a distinction between, like, cultural norms and objective right and wrong, right? Like, I think we all inherently know that there is objective right and wrong, and that there's things that are absolutely wrong, like genocide, mass genocide, intentionally sterilizing people, torture of people intentionally. This is absolutely wrong. But why is this wrong? Right? Is it wrong because most of us just agree that it's wrong, or is it wrong because it's actually inherently wrong and there's something outside of ourselves that determines that? Yeah. I think for there to be truth, right or wrong, good, bad, morality, reason, logic, there has to be something outside of ourselves that determines these things. Not just the greater good, or not the greater good, but not just the greater moral landscape being everybody's consensus, right? It's not might makes right. Because if it's everybody's consensus, like I talked to those annoying vegans, and I was like, well, if it's everybody's consensus that determines what's right and wrong, then most people agree that eating animals is right. Therefore, in their worldview, they would have to agree that eating animals is right. And they said, yes, that's true, and eating animals is right because most people believe it is. And then if you transfer this to slavery, they kept bringing up slavery. They're like, well, at one point, everybody believed that slavery was right. And I said, well, if everybody believes something's right, you said, and I don't believe this, right? But I'm saying their argument was, and they tried to they edited it and tried to make it seem like I was making their arguments, which was very sneaky. You guys are sneaky, those annoying vegans. That was the most annoying thing you guys did, other than torturing that poor chicken. But so if it's might makes right, then everything everybody decides to do is right, and any genocide is justified. The Soviet Union's genocide against the kulaks, the Holocaust, the Holodomor, this was right because Stalin said we should do it, right? I think that's nonsensical. I think right and wrong is determined by something else outside of ourselves. I believe that's God. I think we're made in the image and likeness of God, and we do have, like you said, dominion over all the fish of the sea, all the fowls, the birds of the air. We have dominion over the animals, dominion over this earth. And you mentioned for right or for wrong. It's like, I think you're hitting on real theological realities and truths there that we all know and feel inherently, but we all have been duped in so many ways by the world to believe these other things. So I believe that, yes, there is right and wrong, but I think it has to come for it to be real at all, for it to not just be, if I just convince everybody that it's right for me to be the only alpha male and have all the women in the world in a giant harem and be the master breeder like Jeffrey Epstein wanted. Like, if I convinced everyone that was good, then it's right. Like, I think that's nuts. Right and wrong has to come from outside of us. So that's my thoughts on it. I know there's a lot there, but yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I've never been a religious person. I won't lie to you, but I mean religious is in the sense of the organized religions. I don't buy into any of them. There's too much contradiction. There's too much that doesn't sit right with me. But I'm not denying the existence of something above, like a higher existence. I'm not denying.
Well, no, you're always talking about it. You're talking about morality. You're talking about good, bad. Like, that's it.
Yeah, no, totally, man. Yeah, totally. To deny it would be just as ridiculous as to, like, theists and atheists are one and the same to me because they both believe in something without any proof. You know what I mean? Like, there's no proof that there isn't anything.
Atheism is a religion. Atheism is the dominant religion right now, right? Materialism is a religion, and it's a metaphysical belief, and it's a universal statement to even say there are no universals, right? So if you were to say, if I were to ask you, hey man, is morality objective or subjective? If you were to say morality is subjective and there is no objective truth, to say there is no objective truth is a universal statement. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's a universal statement about all of reality, that there is no universal truth, and it's self-contradictory, right? You can't say there's no universals because that's a universal. So it's kind of like everybody, I would say, is religious, though. Like, when you say, I'm not religious, I think that everybody does have a religion. Everybody does have a core set of presuppositional beliefs that inform how they interpret reality, how they interpret things like right and wrong. And when vegans are upset, like, oh, you say veganism is a religion. Well, I mean, I really do believe it is a religion because it's making a moral claim. They're making universal moral claims about what we should and shouldn't do that are based on core presuppositions that are metaphysical. So it's a metaphysical belief system of morality.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that because we skipped over some points that you're talking about just quickly. They're on my mind still. About you mentioned about slavery and the mass genocides and how those annoying vegans. It's funny when we refer to them because it just sounds like we're talking about annoying vegans in general.
No, that's people. It's actual two people, two of them, not the rest of them.
What they were talking about, that does sound like they got themselves into a corner a little bit maybe, but I think it's important, like when we look back, like it's easy for us to sit here now and look back at things that happened in the past and say, look at those things, they were objectively wrong. But at the time, those individuals, for whatever reason, I don't understand why, because I wasn't there, but like at the time they were doing it, I mean, I guess people thought slavery was right. I mean, I guess most people thought, unless maybe there were people that were just, maybe everyone thought it was wrong, but
many people didn't think it was right. I mean, it's not like this was a universally accepted thing. There were certain cultures that did engage in these practices. I mean, loads of people were doing human sacrifice. I mean, here where I live, just a few hundred years ago, where you live, there are cannibal tribes that still eat people's brains, right? Like, these are the Shiva tribes. They smoke hashish and freaking cover themselves with bone ash all day and drink out of human skulls and eat brains and shit. Like, people do this and they think it's culturally right, but I don't think that makes it right. And I don't think that most of us believe that those people are wrong, therefore they're wrong. I think that most of the time, most of the world is often led astray and wrong. And that's why the theology of like the fall is so important, right? Like what is right and wrong? What is good and what is bad? And how do we determine that? These are the questions we should be asking in any moral and ethical debate or any, conversation.
And then we get into another area, right? And this is not. I'm playing a devil's advocate here. I don't necessarily subscribe to this, but a lot of people would then say to you right now for saying that they would be suggesting that you are trying to, let's say, push your Western values on others, and that this is a form of saviorism or this is a form of white supremacy. This is kind of where the conversation tends to go after that point. Like I don't know if you watch anything by Paul Joseph Watson, but he's made a few videos where he's like, Western culture is the best culture, and people really, really go for him on that. Like they want him dead. Like they literally want to take him down, and he explains why he thinks that, but it doesn't matter. The fact that he says that one culture is better than another is enough to cancel him. Right?
Yeah, but isn't that funny? Because the people who want to cancel him for saying, "Oh, this culture is better than the other," they want to crush his idea because they're saying, "Oh no, our conception of right and wrong and of what's good and bad is better than yours, and you're bad, and we're going to squash you out." So it's like they're doing the same thing. It's very hypocritical.
No, for sure, man. And I don't know. I mean, I'm going to maybe like whistle blow here, but you don't know how much of this goes on in the movement. Like you've no idea. Like there are people. Like I don't know what your interpretation is of like the vegan movement, but from what I'm looking at, I mean, I watched a video of yours yesterday, the one you posted yesterday, I think, where you had some clips from Ed and some clips from some other people, and there's some stuff in there that was really interesting, not vegan related, but there was also the vegan stuff.
Yeah.
And
I think it ties into the greater cultural zeitgeist. It ties into the zeitgeist being the spirit of the age, not the stupid conspiracy candy, which had lots of disinformation in it that came out in like 2008, that Peter Joseph film. Zeitgeist is the spirit of the age, and I think that veganism really is a great example of just our lost and decadent culture in so many ways, right? Like our almost, the West has become so decadent that it's become people moral grandstand about starving their children, which I think that veganism is voluntary long-term deprivation of the most important nutrients that we need. And this comes down to our presuppositions about what is right and wrong, what is good and bad. Is it wrong to kill an animal? Well, these animals are going to die. These animals are killed by other animals, right? And the vegans will say, we're against speciesism. They say, we're against speciesism, we hate speciesism. Well, isn't it speciesist to tell human beings that they can't do what they do? Right now, I'm not saying that what human beings do and what all animals do is good and is bad, and I'm not making any value judgment, but from the vegan worldview where you're anti-speciesist, why would you not evangelize to the black widows or the lions or other predatory animals, other animals that kill other animals? Why human beings only are required? Why are we only required to change our behavior?
Like, first of all, I don't know if you were doing your Gary impression there, but when you talk about speciesism, it's really, I think you've been doing his impression too much because it's exactly the same. Gary Yourofsky.
The
impression, man.
Speciesism, man.
It was like actually like perfect. No, but yeah, I think the key difference. I mean, is I can't remember the actual word for it, but it's morals. Is that we have a capacity as humans, for whatever you would say, it's because of divine intervention that we can make decisions between right or wrong. That you believe we've been created this way because we are like a higher life form, right? Whatever reason you believe in this, it exists. Clearly, we can determine what is right, what is wrong. We can look at things rationally and decide what to do. A black widow has absolutely no concept of that idea.
How do we know that? How do we know that?
Because they act instinctively. They've not been shown to exhibit these traits. They've been studied. Their behavior's been studied. They don't appear to be making decisions based on right or wrong. They make decisions based on what allows me to keep living.
But how do we know what's right and wrong?
How do we know what's right? We already decided that, didn't we? Like we all know. Like I guess the objective ones, then the objective morals that we were referring to.
Yeah. How do we know? How do we know what's good and bad, right and wrong, objectively, universally?
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Universally, we would all agree. Yeah, we would all agree, like that causing others to be harmed. Let's go really vague. Harming others is wrong. We would all agree with that. Unnecessary.
How do we determine harm? Because I could say, well, yeah, it's harm to put a child on a vegan diet. It's harm to deprive people of animal foods. Because I've seen many children with deteriorated teeth, with poor development. I've seen a lot of people with poor health, and then once they get on animal foods, their health is much better. So if I say it's harmful, go ahead.
So just to cut in there, and I've seen kids, grotesquely obese and almost about to die at the age of like 13, switch to plant-based diet and completely reverse all those symptoms. These anecdotes that we both have, for sure, these are two ends of the extreme. There's one extreme where somebody is raising their child on a plant-based diet wrongly, not doing it correctly whatsoever, and the child is suffering. And there's the other side where they're raising their child on an animal food based diet.
It's not animal food. The Western diet that's causing obesity is primarily plant based. It's more than 70% of the calories in the Western diet comes from plants.
So what you're saying you believe that the obesity, the whatever, the heart disease, all these different things that these people have, and you believe it's down to the plant foods in that diet, and not
these polyunsaturated fats, the mass-produced GMO, pesticide-drenched corn, wheat, soy crops that are all highly subsidized by governments. These things are most definitely highly involved with the obesity epidemic. Omega-6 fatty acids, one of the most inflammatory things that we can eat. These things are extracted using toxic chemicals like hexane. Omega-6 fatty acids, these vegetable oils directly cause insulin resistance and cause obesity. So it's like people go on a very high-fat, saturated fat-based diet where they're eating monounsaturated and saturated fat, primarily animal foods, and they reverse the symptoms too. People go on a plant-based diet where they're removing all the oils, right? They're removing all the crap seed oils. They're not eating the toxic seed oils. They're eating, whole foods plant-based. A lot of people do end up losing weight. I would say we want to watch if you're losing muscle as well. And there are other things rather than just losing weight. But yeah, I would most definitely say that it's not an animal-based diet that's causing that. It's not the problem. It's not animals. We've been eating animals since how long?
I guess my point is that there are obviously bad ways to raise children on whether it's plant-based diet or a traditional Western diet. That they can both be done badly, like really badly. But the plant-based, this is something that I think we're going to agree on, and that there is a problem within our movement that people just say vegan equals good. Health is in the diet I'm talking about. Plant-based diet is always good. Always good. No, it's not. Of course it's not. You can do it really, really badly. Like there are people that don't, you can't live your whole life eating certain foods and then just cut them all out without any knowledge of how to replace the nutrients and expect to be healthy. And yeah, you do see a lot of people that they have problems. Like you do see parents raising kids that in bad ways, but you also see that in non-vegan families too, and it's way more prevalent in non-vegan families because there are more non-vegans in the world, right? So if we're going to go purely on statistics, then you have to agree with me that most of the issues with kids malnutrition is non-vegan families because there's more of them. So the issues are out there, man. The issue is a bad diet. It's not necessarily whether it's plant-based or not. And I think that's something that in our movement.
No, what I'm wondering though is like, how do we know what is objectively right and wrong? I mean, you're mentioning outcomes like obesity is wrong, but how do you know that that's wrong, right? Like, I mean, I'm not trying to be obtuse here, but like, how do we know why is obesity wrong, right? Like, why is killing animals inherently wrong if you believe that we're just animals and that we shouldn't be speciesist?
Sure. So obesity being morally right or wrong, I think it's irrelevant. It's more the case of if you want your child or whoever, someone you care about to live a long and healthy life, you would advise them not to become obese because the chances are, because of what we know from studies, the statistics, the chances are they're not going to have a normal, healthy, rich life because they're obese. They're going to have a lot of problems. If you care for people, you'd help them not to be obese. Whether it's morally right or wrong that they're obese is another thing. Regarding killing animals, if we all agree that it's morally wrong to cause others to have harm or suffer unnecessarily, then the difference between me and you, and something we're definitely not going to agree on, is that you see it as a necessity to do that to animals because you see the animal products are necessary for health. That's your belief.
What is suffering? Like, we have to define what suffering is. How do we know what suffering is?
Well, physical suffering, like putting them through pain or enslaving them, keeping them inside, being the like.
So what about all these human beings that have been locked in their homes all around the world right now? What about all these is that wrong? I mean, we lock human beings up. Why is it wrong to lock a human being up too?
I wouldn't say that form of, let's say, suffering or harm is comparable to what some other humans or some animals would go through. Obviously, we can't say that. Let's say, we'll stick to humans to make it simple. We can't say that one human who has been forced, let's say there was that example, was it Fritzl, what was it, where he locked his daughters in his cellar and tortured them? We can't compare that to us being on lockdown, obviously. However, they are both forms of, let's say, I don't know, they are both causing harm, of course.
But what is it just lack of pleasure? I mean, I don't get what suffering is, because I hear a lot of vegans talking about suffering, and it seems like it's this utilitarian, like, if we could just measure your pleasure points, and like if we measure your dopamine levels or something. I mean, if you do a workout or something, like you do some pull-ups, right? That's suffering. Like working physical labor is really difficult. It's suffering. Having a relationship, having a marriage sometimes is difficult, right? A woman giving birth, right? Like your mother giving birth to you, that's suffering, but that enables you to live. So to say that suffering is bad, I don't believe that suffering is bad. Suffering is a necessity in our human condition now, right? Like I don't think that anybody lives without suffering, and I think life without suffering is inconceivable for us in this realm.
Okay, let's expand on it then. I think I wouldn't disagree with that. I think the kind of suffering I'm talking about is unnecessary suffering that's been put on one by another. That they have maybe they didn't consent to it. Let's make it really specific and clear. So for
unnecessary suffering. Okay.
Unnecessary suffering that is without consent. So for example, if someone chooses to go for a run, they're going to suffer a little bit. Their legs might hurt. They're out of shape, right? They're going to suffer. But if I run behind them with a gun saying run, well then that becomes a little bit of a different situation, doesn't it? You know, that's no longer suffering that they would say they didn't consent to it. And maybe it wasn't necessary in the first place, but now it's against their consent. I'm forcing them to suffer. I'm the reason they're suffering. So I think it's
but what about like that argument gets used to justify, and I see a lot of vegans go in there, antinatalism, right? So it's like by you having a baby, you are forcing this child to be born as a nasty little booger. We'll do the Gary your eyes, little booger picking, rapist, murderer, disgusting, gross human being who's just here to torture animals and make my dad mean to me and make my mom hate me because she's a psychopath. You know, it's like these people, they justify antinatalism with this argument. So it's like, if you just bring in a child into the world, you're guaranteeing that it's going to suffer unnecessarily because it's not necessary to bring a child into the world. Therefore, veganism directly justifies that. So, but the question really becomes, we don't have to get into the antinatalism stuff. How do we determine what is necessary? What is necessary and what is unnecessary? Because it's not necessary for me to live. I know there's 20 different ways in my house right now. I can stop myself from living and unnecessarily suffering.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's when you there has to be like an end to these arguments, and I've been down this route myself. Like I've gone down we keep reducing the argument, going further and further and further to its conclusion, and you have to accept that there is a final point. You can't just go, like for example, the idea of veganism, the whole avoiding animal exploitation as far as practical and possible. I actually like that definition. A lot of people don't like it, the practical and possible part, because they say it's too vague. But without that part, you do get to the point that you just said, where you say, okay, well, antinatalism has to be vegan then. And also, actually, you should kill yourself because that's the true conclusion of veganism.
But I don't think practical and possible. I think you're like 10 steps ahead of most vegans as far as this. Maybe one day we can have an ex-vegan conversation, but like I think that you're onto something there, man. But I think practical and possible, practicable, right? It's practicable, which I don't like. What the hell is what kind of legalese is this, man? If this was a law that was like going to determine if you're getting a death sentence or not, like this is a lawyer's wet dream. Like it's so vague, it could be interpreted by anybody. Practicable and possible. It's like, well, it's possible for me to never eat anything ever again, and for me to just sit here in place, meditate the rest of my life, and and sing praises to Sadhguru and Shiva, and then just die in a pile of my own flesh that just rots away. Like that's possible. And hey, you know what? I would say that's practicable too, right? So it's like it's a subjective thing. So I think morality is objective, and if we get caught up in this subjective moral calculus, it always ends up in just gobbledygook nonsense. And go ahead.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, no, I mean, I'll give it like to kind of refocus and kind of go from where I'm coming from and the message that I try and send out, even though I know we can talk about this in a second, actually, might be something that interests you, but like where I try and keep myself and the way I do things it is very rational, it's very logical for me, because I see the things that I don't have to do this. Like from my personal experience, I have, like I said, I've been vegan for about 10 years, 11 years. I've run marathons, I've climbed mountains, I've done all this stuff fully vegan, no animal products, like at all. I've been to Everest Base Camp, climbed Kilimanjaro, all these different things. And so I know that physically, I know it's possible. And I know it's not only possible, I know that I've not suffered because of my food intake or my clothing. I've not suffered for those things. So I know that it's possible, right? For me personally, talking about myself right now, it's possible, it's practicable for me to do this. And I'll continue doing this, and I'll continue adding to this. When I learn new things, when I see new things that I see, okay, this is causing problems for others, this is causing problems for animals, I'll do my best to get those things out of my life. But I think there has to be a limit, and this is what I think the vegans you're referring to here, they don't think the same as me, in that there has to be a limit, because we're in as much as we may hate it, or many vegans may hate it, this is not a vegan world. This is not a world where people consider anti-speciesism as morally the correct thing to be. They don't consider speciesism full stop. They don't consider that animals are deserving of the same rights and same consideration as humans, and this is the world we're in. So it has massive limitations. And as much as I will try my best in my very short life, in terms of, the life of the earth, it's very short, and we're only here for like a speck of time, aren't we? I'll do my best to try to change that in the small ways I can change that to help the non-human animals and to try and make a different world. But ultimately, we all have to accept that we have limitations, and that's where it comes down to. I'm not going to kill myself because I want to be vegan.
Dude, you're not really vegan then. You're blowing it, man. You're doing it wrong.
Exactly. Well, a lot of people would say that, mate, and this is again another problem I see within our movement. And I don't want to sound like I'm bitching or, like I said, whistle blowing on people, but it is a problem. It is that people are not the most logical, not the most rational. They are emotion driven. I completely agree with you. I feel a little bit like a sore thumb sometimes, right? And I'm never going to be an ex-vegan, but I may at some point in the future, could stop using the word at some point. Maybe if I see it progresses to a level where I really don't want to be associated with the term anymore. But I will always be someone who will care about animals and respect them enough not to consume them, even if it's convenient, right? This is the thing.
The air you breathe consumes the animals too, man. I mean, the air you breathe is oxidizing their lungs and consuming them. Seriously, man, the ground you walk on is going to consume them. The ground we walk on, the ground you grow the plants in, is consuming animals. If we're just strictly looking at it from the physical perspective, which I think is fallacious as well, but if you're just looking at it that perspective, it's like these animals, they're going to die. Every single animal has to die. It's funny that vegans have such an aversion to death and humans have such an aversion to death. And I think people go in all these circles trying to justify this with really improper, illogical, and irrational ways, rather than looking at, I don't know. So we have the theology of the fall for this reason, right? There was no death before the fall, and a lot of vegans are trying to, in this like blasphemous way, recreate the Garden of Eden, right? You have the Seventh-day Adventists, which have heavily influenced vegan dietary policy globally, right, and heavily influenced the vegan movement, right? So Seventh-day Adventists with Ellen G. White, who was channeling what she called angels and saying that God was telling her that we need to go back to the Garden of Eden diet, and because before the fall we weren't consuming animals, if we can just all go back to that diet, then we'll go back to this perfect Garden of Eden, this perfect utopia. So it's like, even right there, there's another aspect of veganism that is directly tied in with cults, with a New Age cult. So I think, I think.
I don't know much about that, man. I mean,
look at Ellen G. White and the influence of Seventh-day Adventism with nutritional policy, especially in the U.S. It's like there's a big push now for plant-based diets. There's a big push. Antinatalism is a big push, right? Depopulation. You got Sadhguru saying we got to decrease the human population. Bill Gates wants to decrease the human population, but then says he wants to save all the children of Africa. But he says there's too many children in Africa. But I'm going to go save all those children in Africa by giving them my happy, healthy medicine shots. It's like, I don't know, man. There's a lot we can unpack here. I think we've had this is a good introduction conversation. Maybe we can continue this another time. It is getting a little bit late on my end, and I've got some more super chats, but yeah, man, you're a lot you're much less insufferable than the other vegans we watched on this stream today. So I really appreciate the conversation, dude. And I'll let you, if you got anything to respond with that, and then we'll jump into the super chats. And if you guys have more questions in the audience, you can send those super chats. We're a little behind because he and I were having a fun convo there. So yeah, what other thoughts do you have, man?
Yeah. No, I think you mentioned an aversion to death. Just one thing I would click on there is, like, I mean, for me personally, it's not like an aversion to death makes it sound like I'm somehow like a fear of death or some irrational fear of dying or seeing other animals die. And I would say I had that previously for sure. And after being here in India, I've been face to face with death like almost consistently over the last 12 months. So I think that's no longer there for me now. It's not like I'm trying to escape it or try and, I'm scared of it or something like that. I just genuinely don't believe it needs to happen. And I just don't believe that this needs to take place. These animals specifically, for humans, obviously we all die. Everyone dies, I get that. But I don't believe that there's a necessity to breed these beings into existence, then to just slit their throats and just put them back out of existence again for snacks, right? So that's kind of where I'm at. It's not like like I said, I won't turn away from it. I won't be triggered by it now. But that's after being exposed to it for so long. So I wouldn't say that's necessarily my case.
So you have no problem with killing animals then, or just with death of humans?
I wouldn't kill anyone unless I had to. But if I had to, then like anything, if you have to do something, you will get used to it by necessity. You have to do it. It's like if you like anything, if you don't like something, you don't agree with it, but you have to do it, then you will become used to it and you will become accustomed to it.
How do we have to do anything? We don't really have to do anything. Like we have a free will. We can say yes or no to anything. We don't have to die. Or I'm sorry, we don't have to kill. We don't have to. We do have to die. But we don't have to do anything, I guess, except die.
That's a good point. No, I mean, to survive, I'm talking about survival, like necessity, meaning I believe that like survival is like, I know we talked about earlier, some vegans will say survival is not a reason to do something. I disagree. Survival is an absolute, if someone justifies something by survival, then I don't see how that can be argued against. But the argument does come up is that you would believe that survival includes eating and using animals, whereas I would believe that for me, even for a lot of people, it doesn't. Maybe there are people in the world that it does, for sure, and I'm not going to tell them, you can't do anything about that. Not right now, anyway.
You're not an abolitionist. Are you an abolitionist?
In the sense of that I believe that animals shouldn't be used and abused, absolutely.
No. In the sense that you think we should abolish and create legal frameworks and abolish the killing of animals. I mean, if you say milk is murder, should people be charged for murder?
It's a good one. It's a good point. Well, in our current society, that's not. That we're looking for like hundreds and hundreds of years in advance here, right?
So
like,
hundreds of years in the future, if I have a cow and I milk it and then I eat that cow,
that's legal.
And I should go to jail. I should go to prison. Yeah.
I would rather it didn't get to the point where it had to be made illegal. I would rather people just stopped doing it for because they realize they don't need to. However, if that needed to be implemented in the future, then well, yeah, the same way that we have laws now against many things that we did in the past, they were necessary because people still wanted to do those things, right? And if that happens in the future, then yeah, am I advocating now for a law? Well, no, because how is it? If we advocate for these laws now, they're just going to fail and they're going to drive animal products underground. And if these things are underground, let's agree here, it's going to be a lot worse than things are now. Like without laws.
No, we won't let that happen. We'll fucking kill you. We're not going to give. This is the thing. No, I'm being real here. Vegans don't understand this. We're not going to give up our animal foods. I'm not going to stop teaching my children animal husbandry and how to feed themselves off of their own land. I'm not going to give my children over to this degenerate culture that's trying to feed them, processed, refined stuff. I want them to be able to be truly self-sufficient, and they're not going to submit to this stuff. There are a lot of people who would feel the same way. They're not going to give up their animal foods. They're not going to give up their land. And it's like, this is why I'm saying, like, even though like you're a real nice guy, you're less obnoxious than these other vegans. I feel like you're a little bit deluded in this thought that it's somehow a humane thing to just guilt trip everybody for a few hundred years about eating animals and tell them this is wrong, you don't need to do it. Do you think you need to do that? Well, you don't need to do it. Do you really need to do it? It's like this is vegan activism in a nutshell. And I think that it is very delusional, very arrogant, and very silly to think that you're just going to, reprogram humanity and re-educate humanity over a long-term 100-year time, and then have some utopia where nobody eats animals. This is the same thinking that is coming through people like Paul Ehrlich, Sadhguru, who are talking about, we need to decrease the human population because humans won't stop breeding. This is the same mentality of, this totalitarian mentality that's bringing in, this insane system of control over every aspect of our lives. This is the same justification, and I absolutely reject that, and we won't give them up, and this is why we fight against it. And this is why I'm saying I think you're eventually gonna drop the whole shtick, and you're not gonna be doing this too much longer. And I hope so. But if not, it's all good, man. If you can eat all plants and live your life, I have no problem with it. What I have a problem with is whether it's short term or long term, trying to take away our rights and our abilities to feed ourselves. Because there are a lot of people who've gotten off of animal foods, who've gone vegan, and who've screwed up their health, and now all they can eat is animal foods, at least for an extended period of time until they heal up their gut and they're able to go back to eating some plants. They realize the importance of it. And I say that it's speciesist and arrogant and destructive towards our health, and especially towards those people who've experienced the suffering from a vegan diet. And I think it's absolutely wrong. I think veganism is heretical in many ways, right? We're made in the image and likeness of God. We are not the same as cows. We're not the same as chickens. We should not be putting people in jail for killing animals and for eating animals. This is something that we require for our health. So that's it for me on the arguments there. I'll let you have some closing stuff on that, and then we'll go over to the super chats.
All right, cool. I think honestly, I think from your videos, and I've seen them from that section just there, I think you conflate someone like me with this kind of government control system that's trying to take away your rights and make you into some kind of zombie or someone that just has to depend completely on them. And whereas we actually agree on that, I'm also against that. I'm largely against government intervention in many things. Like, for example, unlike a lot of people in my circles, like I'm absolutely pro freedom of speech, and I don't believe the government should ever intervene with freedom of speech unless it's inciting violence. I don't believe that anything else the government should step in unless it's literally me saying go and kill that person. They shouldn't be stepping in. You should have complete freedom of speech. So like I'm with you on a lot of that, and I think conflating. I understand why you would conflate the ideas, because you can see people like Bill Gates. Yeah, he's maybe advocating for vegan things and things. I don't know why he's doing that. I don't know much about Bill Gates. I don't know what his agenda is, but it's not my agenda.
Right. No, I understand that, but that's why I'm saying it's like the vegan activists are a part of a bigger cultural zeitgeist that is pushing towards total control over every aspect of our lives. And just the thought of 100 years from now, like in the projected future where you said, well, we won't need to do this, hopefully, but yeah, I do think that we should make it a law. It's like, to me, it's like, I
didn't say we should. I said that I think that the covering what you said about being self-sustainable, I agree with you that people should be self-sustainable. And I know there are many self-sustainable communities that are plant-based around the world, right? So it's possible to be completely self-sustainable, depending on obviously where you are in the world. I know that. But the reality is that a lot of people are not going to do that. And you're doing that, and that's your call. But a lot of people, it's not sustainable to ask billions of people or try and force billions of people to be self-sustainable. It's a lot of them couldn't do it. They would die if that were the case. So there has to be food provided to them, right? There has to be a system that provides these people food from other places. What I'm advocating for is for that food not to be animal-based. Now, where it comes with laws, I mentioned that because I do agree that if people don't need to do this, and they continue to do it for pleasure, like as in they keep like using, exploiting, abusing, whatever you want to call it, animals for pleasure, then I don't really want government intervention. But if that's what it takes to have people stop doing it, then so be it. But I know that government intervention would drive this underground. So then I have this problem in my mind, whereas we both agree on this, without animal welfare laws, how would it be? How horrific would it be? Like these systems would be unbelievable. They're horrible right now, these factory farming systems, but imagine if they went underground and they were hidden. Can you imagine what the shit would be going on in there? So I do have this internal conflict where it's like, I would like that there was something in place to, let's say, encourage people to stop doing it. But at the same time, I understand that if the government steps in, then we'll create a black market, and then that's going to create suffering, back to suffering. But that's going to create unbelievable amounts of suffering, more than we could even imagine.
Veganism, this is why I'm saying veganism is genocide. Like, it is genocide of rural people. Veganism is a long-term slow holodomor. The removal of the peasants from the land, people who can sustain themselves off of their own land. You can't do it on a vegan diet. You cannot produce enough plant food on your own land, process that plant food and eat nothing but your own plant food in your own local community. It requires so much input. It requires so much more input. Animal input is required to grow plant foods. We need worms. We need manure to grow plant food. So to me, it's like what you just said right there is just another example of why I push against it and why I believe that veganism is absolutely genocidal madness. And I believe that, to me, it's frightening to hear people say this, that they would put people in jail for eating animals and consuming animals, and they think that that's the right thing to do because this is what human beings need to do. This is what we need to do for health. And to say, oh, it's unnecessary, you haven't even been able to define what necessary is. How do we determine if something's necessary or not? You just say it's unnecessary, so therefore it's unnecessary, or I say it's necessary, therefore it's necessary. How do we know what is objectively true, right or wrong? That's the real question.
We covered that, man, for like necessary for survival. We went over that.
So
briefly.
For survival, it's necessary to eat animal foods then?
In your eyes, yes. That's where we completely disagree. And this is we know that we're not going to convince each other on that one, which is why we kind of, we went over it. But that's our core disagreement. That we can agree on a lot apart from that.
No, but you agree that you need supplements to survive on a vegan diet, right?
Most of the population of Western countries need supplements no matter what they're eating.
That's not true.
This is. I mean, again, like I don't know. We can
vitamin
quote studies.
You don't see rampant vitamin B12 deficiency like you do in vegetarian and vegan populations. Don't you need supplements? Like, do you not need B12 to be vegan?
Yeah, that's recommended for the majority of Western populations. That most governments in the West recommend that all people, regardless of diets, take B12 and D vitamins because of the way that we eat. It is though. They're government recommendation.
I'll nicely disagree. We don't have to keep going on that. I'll kindly disagree. Yeah, I think. It's getting a little late here. If we keep going, I don't want the stream to be 4 hours long. But we could do it again. We could do it when you. Sometime in the future you come back. But let me come back over here to the super chats. We got Dell. Let me finish the second part of his thing. He says, "What if animal foods are needed for humans to be healthy?" So what if animal foods are needed for humans to be healthy? What if there are people watching right now like Dell who tried veganism, realized, and he did it right? I guess, all the vegans will say he did it wrong, but let's just say he did it right, which is impossible because he's not vegan anymore. I get it, vegan activists online on YouTube in the comments who you never see your face. But say Dell did it right, hypothetically, right? Impossible, but hypothetical. Say he did it right. Are animal foods, and he believes that animal foods are necessary for his health, and this is objectively true, then what?
If objectively true, are we
not just that he believes that they are objectively necessary for health, and it is objectively true that they're necessary for, say, I don't know, whatever, 10% of the people in the world just absolutely need animal foods, then what?
So if it's objectively true, if we're talking about literally like it has been proven without a shadow of a doubt, there is no doubt whatsoever, there's no contradictory studies, no one else is providing an alternative theory, there is nothing, and it is 100% true, it's accepted, then
just because something's accepted doesn't make it true, right?
I guess you get my point. If it's like, within the scientific version of truth, like within a reasonable amount of doubt, let's say, the consensus is that this is how it is, then you'd have to accept it, wouldn't you? That would be.
Does consensus make something true? Does consensus make something true?
I mean, we have to. I guess all we have is that, don't we? I mean, we all we have to look at is data and studies and also our own perception on it, and that's all we have. Otherwise, we're just clutching at straws. We're just in the darkness, aren't we? Pissing in the wind. Let's say. I'd say like all we have is. Unfortunately, yeah, usually sometimes government funded, sometimes meat industry funded, sometimes I'm sure there are a lot of vegan industry funded things too. Unfortunately, it's up to us to navigate through these to figure out where the actual truth is and then make our own decision from it.
So that's how we determine truth, is like, that's the only way to determine truth, is science?
In my eyes, I guess, yeah, I would say I rely on, let's say, rational, being as rational as possible, and wherever that information comes from, whether it's a scientific community or whether it's my own eyes.
How do we know what's rational? Where does reason come from?
Critical thinking. You have to take all arguments, put them all together, add them up, subtract. Make sense of what you have, and try to logically, rationally take them to pieces and figure out where your truth is, I suppose. I mean, I guess it's difficult in the world.
You're back to subjective again. You're back to just subjective opinion, right?
Man, it's a difficult thing to get into. Like you said, we could be on this for 4 hours. It's you can keep unpacking and unpacking. It's not just like a single answer question. There's like 50 layers to this that you can keep going down and down and down. And I'm happy to do it. It's a good, These
are the important questions. This is what interests me, is like, what is truth? What is reality? How do we know what is true? How do we know what's right and wrong, right? It's like, I mean, even when we talk about reason and logic, these are non-physical things that can't be measured or proved empirically through science anyways. Reason and logic are metaphysical, right? So it's like those actually require God as well. Those require something outside of ourselves that's metaphysical, that is beyond matter, that's beyond ourselves, and that is, it requires that. So, I mean, that's why I ask those questions, because it leads us to the basic core presuppositions of our worldview, which... So yeah, all right. So let me get to the next part of Dell's question. He says, "Are animals more important than humans?" We already answered that. If you want to just, I would say no. I would say absolutely not. Animals are not more important than humans. That human beings are set apart from the animals, and we are different from animals. We are not just beasts.
So I don't completely disagree with you. I guess I'm not attaching more importance to because of a species, because then that is what we talked about. If I'm an anti-speciesist and I'm attaching more importance to certain species, then that doesn't make any sense. I'm not saying I don't think non-humans are more or less important than humans. Of course, we all have a preference to our own species. Like but that's something that I think it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to mistreat them because we have a preference for our own, if that makes sense. Like if you have the choice if people ask this question, do you have a choice to save a dog or a human? Who are you going to save? You're going to save the human. Why? Because you have a preference to your own species. That's something that is just...
Depends on what human and which dog. I mean, if it's my dog, Bill Gates, my dog,
Yeah, all right. I guess.
If it's a human that's coming onto my land to rob my house, and my dog, right? So it's yeah. All right. Sorry,
I get your point though.
But Vegan Gaines would say any dog over any human, except maybe his wife.
No, I think you're right. I think a lot of vegans would say, like, yeah, I would always choose the non-human because of, humans are what are this and that.
Humans are disgusting, booger picking, rapist, murderer, They're all like my mom and my dad, who are psychopaths. Go vegan, wake the fuck up. Gary Yourofsky for president 2020.
I guess just to summarize, I'll be really quick. Sorry, I know I'm taking a lot of time here. Summarize the point is that I don't see a problem with having a preference over your own species. I don't see a problem with having a preference for humans over other animals. But I don't think that necessarily means we have to go out of our way to go and mistreat other animals because they're not human. That's my point.
Okay. All right. So and I agree. We don't have to mistreat them. We shouldn't mistreat any animals. We shouldn't mistreat anybody. And we should treat everything with respect. And I respectfully milk my cow every day, and I will respectfully slaughter and eat animals for my own health. All right, Dunning-Kruger, great name, $9, says, "For an animal, is life and death in nature preferable to life and death in the care of humans?"
Preferable? I think it's I don't think how I'm going to answer this because I want to make sure I get it clear enough. I think the question is interesting, but largely irrelevant because we've got to understand that they wouldn't exist in nature because they have been bred and they've been manipulated. They're domesticated animals, the ones we're talking about. So if you're asking me, would a domesticated animal have a better life in nature? No, of course not. They have no idea how to live in nature because of what we've done to them, the man-made animals. Would an animal in nature have a better life with humans? Well, it depends what the human's doing to them. It's a really, yeah, it's not a simple question to answer, I'd say.
All right. How do we, and so human beings are not part of nature?
I would say no. I would actually say we're probably not. I mean, nature, the definition of nature, I know it doesn't, we're not appealing to definition here, but it is that anything that it can exist, right? So I guess in that sense, yes, of course, we're in nature. We exist, everything that is in nature, in the sense of like a natural ecosystem. Well, I mean, I think we're far away from that. I think we've kind of played God and created our own like ecosystem. We've created our own thing that is completely out of line and out of sync with our like natural way of being. I think we're way out of sync with that.
What's our natural way of being? How do we know what's nature and not nature?
I don't know, man, but I just know that we're not there. I mean, look at what you know what I mean? Look at what we do, and look what we've done, the way we act, that we dress, we wear clothes, all these things. Like, I just think we've come so far away from I don't think it's they're good or bad. I just think that we're just very much. I mean, look at the levels of anxiety and depression we have. Look at all the different mental illnesses people have and psychological disorders and things like that. And a lot of it, I know a lot of it is biological, but a lot of it is also kind of caused by the environment that we're in. You know, because I don't feel that this is our natural environment. Sitting in a house or an office 9 to 5. That's not what humans. That's not our place, is it? You know, that's why you see people with all these problems. But that's
what do you think about like bees? Because we keep bees here, and it's, you know, bees create this whole hive that they exist inside of. They warm it with their bodies. They bring in materials from the outside world, and they curate these little cells where they grow larvae, and they bring pollen in. They make honey. I mean, there are plenty of animals that curate their environment. I just think it's just such a funny thing to me when vegans, they say that we're not a part of nature. I mean, even non-vegans, like a lot of people, they have this concept that human beings there's nature and then there's man, and man is separate from nature. I think it's kind of it's like without the theology of the fall, I don't get how they can reconcile those two different
I don't know,
things.
man. I think you just have to look at the symptoms of our how we are right now. I mean, we've got the highest rates of depression, anxiety that ever, basically. And I don't think that is an accident. I think that is directly linked to the lives that we've created for ourselves. I think the lives that most people are in are absolutely out of sync with the natural ways. Like, for example, we're definitely built to be outside, right? Obviously, we know that we need sunlight. We need to be outside. We
can't be outside all day though. Like we can't,
no, sure.
You know, the winter,
No.
especially white, like we're, you know, Europeans, like in the winter, messy.
Yeah. For sure, man, for sure. But we're definitely. I feel, I mean, personally, I don't know about in general, but I feel like most comfortable, most alive when I'm outside doing things. And like, you know, when I'm outside, like.
Yeah, but dude, I love coming inside when it's raining outside, and I've like worked hard outside. I'm gonna come home and I'm gonna sleep in my bed under this roof. Like, I like being outside too, but I also like being able to sleep under the roof.
Yeah. Shelter, yeah, we take it, of course, but there's a difference between doing that and then there's a difference between sitting in an office literally 40 hours a week, right? That's I don't feel like that's what we're built for, and I feel like this is way out of sync with our nature, whatever that means. But that's again a whole other topic.
We're not meant to be live streaming 3 hours a night.
Definitely not. It's totally out of nature.
All right, yeah, I think that's an interesting concept, though. The concept of like, I think that's one that you should maybe explore more too. Is like, what, you know, nature. Why do we think that people are different? Right? People are separate from nature, and where does that belief come from? And why do so many people kind of have that as a core assumption? And then this whole thing of like domesticating animals is bad, yet, you know, we've got a domesticated human society that's apparently really good, and domesticating plants is fine, but domesticating animals is bad. It's just kind of, I don't know, it seems like there's some inconsistencies. I'm not saying that you adhere to all those, but I think those are ones to explore for sure. So yeah, thanks, man. Del Bridge says, can we get all our nutrients on a vegan diet?
I mean, we know we're going to fundamentally disagree on this. So I think I say yes, you say no. And that's another hour, so it's up to you if you you look like you're gonna fall asleep, man. So maybe we can come back to this and get into it another time.
Yeah, it's past my bedtime. My curfew's passed. Del Bridge says another $5. Thanks, Del. Does truth exist?
Does truth exist? Dude, that's like another 3 hours, man.
I say yes, absolutely, yes. Truth exists.
Yeah. No, for sure. Like, I think there are. I do think there are some objective truths. There are some objective right and wrongs. And I think you're right in that the subjective part you could be right in that they're the cultural norms that I'm talking about, that cultural differences that are subjective. Whereas
I don't think that there's objective. I don't think there's subjective truths. I think all truths have to be objective, and then there's preferences and things that people do. But I don't think truth is determined by our norms or by what we do. I think that's where we differ.
That's something I never really looked into. I'll be honest with you. I can't make a core decision on this because this is the first time I've discussed it. I've never got into this conversation, so I will check that out. These concepts.
I'll throw you some because I got your DM in Instagram. I'll send you a couple links to some books that you might, I don't know, kind of see where I'm coming from and kind of see read deeper into some of the better critiques that maybe I didn't make as eloquently as I could have but I think these are the important questions, like when you're sitting around a campfire or, hanging out with friends and family, like this is that's the real meat of it right there, or soy of it. All right, we got one more part of that question. He says, beliefs do not equate facts. Also, how do you know that we do not need to eat animal foods? I think we went over that. He said that he doesn't need to eat animal foods, and so yeah, I mean, I think I do. I know I do. So, I don't know if you don't have to answer that if you don't want to. When plants do not contain enough nutrients, how do you know we do not need to eat animal foods when plants do not contain enough nutrients?
Yeah, this is again, we're just going to fundamentally disagree on that. I mean, I know where this person's coming from. I know I've read all of the carnivore, keto stuff, this is a long conversation. I mean, I'm not. What's the word I'm looking for? I have the knowledge. Like, I'm not ignorant to the things that this community is saying. I'm not at all. I'm very much like reading about it. I'm interested in it because I want to know what people are saying. Right?
You want to debunk it. You want to debunk it. You want to.
I've never gone out trying to debunk keto or carnivore. I've never directed. You can go through my posts. I've never directed any posts at those people because I don't know. I don't see the point in going trying to debunk people. I'll keep talking about the things that I'm seeing, and I'll keep sharing knowledge that I'm getting, and they'll keep sharing the stuff they're getting. And then I know I'm never going to change your mind. I'm never going to change their minds. And it's what's the point trying? There's two groups of science here, right? And it's up to you to decide which one you think is right.
So the moral, when you're doing that, you're not worried about the nutrition side of it. You're saying, look, I'm fine on a vegan diet. You're more concerned with the morality and the ethics of veganism as the argument, right?
I am definitely more concerned with that, and I will never try to give someone. As people ask me, like, what do you think?
Things just refreshing right now, and now we're green. All right, we're back. Sorry, guys. Right. Refresh it if it's buffering.
Okay, I'll finish that point real quick. Regarding nutrition, like, I'm not a nutritionist, right? So all I'm going to do with people that ask me about nutrition, I'll direct them to places where they can get that information from. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not going to give people medical advice. I feel it's irresponsible to do that, medical or nutritional advice. But I will send them to places where they can get it. That's how I do it. Yeah.
All right, man. So I know you got. Where can people find you? If you want to go ahead and if people want to contact you, troll you, no. If they want to be nice to you and contact you on social media or follow you or come join you in Cube of Truthing the Indians.
Yeah, sure. You can always. I wouldn't advise to troll because it's just kind of a waste of your time and my time. But if you do want to talk, I'm always happy to have a chat with you. We can go live sometime on my Instagram, something like that. I don't know. It's Skinny Vegan Fitness because I'm skinny, I'm vegan, and I like fitness. It's pretty simple. Not a complicated guy. And that's on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, pretty much everywhere. TikTok, yeah.
All right, Skinny Vegan Fitness. Thanks for hanging out, man. It's been a nice chat. I appreciate you coming on. Everybody watching, thanks for supporting. Thanks for the super chats. Everybody who threw them super chats out. Let me come over here and make sure there's none left. we've read them all. All right, we're good, guys. I got another stream hopefully on Thursday. I think Paul Bashir is going to come on. I'm not sure what's going to happen with that. If he doesn't come on, then I'll be on Boiler Room for sure on Thursday. Jay Dyer will be there too. You guys want to become a member, if you guys want our support and you want to support the work we do, we're doing our next coaching call on Friday in our private members forum, in our inner circle. There are a bunch of really cool people in there, quite a few ex-vegans. Sometimes we sponsor some ex-vegans and get them in there. We even got some former vegan activists up in there, and we've got a really good community of like-minded people who are there to help you, support you, including myself and Jessica. So that's going to be on Friday, the next coaching call. We do those weekly. You can join that. And yeah, more stuff to come, more fun to come. You guys make sure to share this and like it, and go show some love to Skinny Vegan Fitness for not being insufferable like some of these other vegans we've met lately. Nice hanging out, man. Really good to meet you. Thanks for coming on, dude.